Chapter 207. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated even faster. Millions of novels will be read for free. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found online. Yao She moved to Bisui Alley. The whole family was very happy and welcomed her arrival. Yao She didn't bring any maidservants, only Nanny Fong. Gu Yan gave up his room and moved in with Gu Xiaoshun. Gu Xiaoshun didn't mind. After all, the bed was so big that it was enough for 3 people to sleep on it. Also, the two of them went to school together and learned skills together. Their relationship was so close that they were like brothers. Yao She and Nanny Fong lived in Gu Yan's room. The old chancellor lived next door. The old madam disliked the fact that she had to take a detour and go through the main door every time she wanted to rob the private stash. So, she simply let Gu Jiao and Yao She break through the walls of the 2 houses and turned it into a compound courtyard house. There were enough rooms. The reason why Nanny Fong lived in Yao She's room was mainly to take care of her. The news of Yao She's pregnancy wasn't hidden from them. Everyone knew that Yao She had a baby in her belly. Gu Yan stared at Yao She's belly for a long time. He couldn't believe that he was going to be an older brother. Little Jing Kong came to Yao She, clasped his hands behind his back, and tilted his head. "Madam, is the baby in your belly a younger brother or a younger sister?" Yao She smiled and asked, "Jing Kong, do you want a younger brother or a younger sister?" Little Jing Kong thought for a while and rolled his eyes. After confirming that Xiao Lulang wasn't at home, he tiptoed and whispered in Yao She's ear, "A younger brother. A younger brother like my bad brother-in-law." This way, he could flatten his bad brother-in-law. Ha ha ha. Little Jing Kong still felt regretful that his bad brother-in-law couldn't become Little 8, so he placed his hopes on the younger brother in Yao She's belly. He had a very strange logic. As long as the younger brother was born, his bad brother-in-law would become a younger brother. How could Yao She guess the unconstrained thoughts of a child? She thought that little Jing Kong wanted a younger brother to play with him. It was already not easy for her to get pregnant with a body like this. As for whether it was a son or a daughter, she felt that it was fine. Little Jing Kong carefully took care of Yao She and the little brother in Yao She's belly, then turned around to do his own things. Xiao Lulang had been a little busy recently. Feng Lin was in some trouble. He was from Song County, and after he passed the provincial examination, someone had used his name to farm. The land under the name of the Zhao country's high scholar could be exempted from paying taxes. Feng Lin's parents didn't farm. It was the relatives of the clan who hung fields in Feng Lin's name and received a lot of money as filial piety. Feng Lin didn't know anything about this. It just so happened that the imperial court was in the midst of rectifying the practice of hanging fields, and it just so happened that Song County was used as a model. This matter could be big or small. If it was big, it could cause Feng Lin to lose his title as a high scholar and be unable to participate in the imperial examinations. Feng Lin was extremely anxious. Xiao Lulang asked if his parents were involved in this matter. Feng Lin told Xiao Lulang that his parents weren't involved, but the relatives of the clan gave his parents some filial piety. When they gave it, they said that it was a small token of appreciation for Feng Lin's studies. After the incident, they insisted that it was a dividend from the hanging fields. His parents jumped into the Yellow River and couldn't clear their names. In order to not implicate their son, they almost committed suicide by hanging themselves. Fortunately, Feng Lin's younger sister found out in time and stopped them. It wouldn't be difficult to deal with this matter sooner or later. Feng Lin could go back and confront them face to face. Unfortunately, it was now the spring imperial examination, so Feng Lin couldn't leave. Xiao Lulang asked around and found out that the local provincial governor in charge of this matter was half a disciple of Elder Feng. When Elder Feng was the minister of the Honglu Temple, he had promoted him. Xiao Lulang sent an urgent letter to the provincial governor as Elder Feng's disciple. Xiao Lulang returned to Bisui Alley. At this time, little Jing Kong, who was supposed to be doing his homework in his room, was sitting on the doorsill. Beside him was a puppy, 7 chicks, and an eagle that had grown up a lot. The formation was very neat. Xiao Lulang was annoyed and amused at the same time. Is there such a big formation to welcome me? Little Jing Kong glanced at him and proudly showed a gold plate in his hand. Jiao Jiao gave me a gift. After all this time, it turned out that he was waiting here to show off in front of him. Xiao Lulang just thought that it was an ordinary toy. The moment he held it in his hand, the plate felt heavy. He suddenly felt that something was wrong. Then he fixed his eyes on it and was dumbfounded. Wasn't this the death-free gold plate of the royal family? No, he hadn't been at home for a while. How did she get the death-free gold plate? What was going on? Jiao Jiao gave it to me. You're not allowed to snatch it. Little Jing Kong tiptoed to snatch the gold plate back and hugged it in his arms. Stingy. Xiao Lulang patted his little head and stepped into the courtyard. Little Jing Kong, who was scolded but was powerless to resist, went crazy. See, this was why he had to grow up quickly. He wanted to grow up to be as big as his bad brother-in-law and make him small. Then, he would beat him up as hard as he could. TSK, TSK, TSK. Xiao Lulang saw Yao Shi in the backyard. A long time ago, Gu Jiao had mentioned to the family that she wanted to bring Yao Shi over. He was not surprised to see Yao Shi. Xiao Lulang could clearly feel that when Yao Shi was around, Gu Jiao's mood would become better. Perhaps Gu Jiao himself did not realize this. Xiao Lulang greeted Yao Shi and went to the kitchen. Gu Jiao was cutting vegetables. Xiao Lulang said, "Are you in a good mood?" "No." Gu Jiao tilted her little head. Xiao Lulang, look at this smug face. Yao Shi was in a good mood because she had moved in with her son and daughter. Even her appetite had improved. Gu Jiao also had a good appetite. Xiao Lulang noticed that she ate half a bowl of rice more than usual. She even ate 2 chopsticks of the yellow daylily that she hated the most. Gu Jinyu's condition was not good. She was sent to the Ministry of Justice by the Emperor's order for the crime of damaging the imperial seal. Although this matter was still under investigation and she had not been convicted, she was still a weak woman locked in a cold and gloomy interrogation room. She was afraid and her body could not take it. At first, she really thought it was an accident. But gradually, she felt that something was wrong. Why would the Emperor suddenly care about her marriage? At the time, she had been too arrogant and thought that she had enough capital for the Emperor to pay attention to her. But in the past 2 days, the Emperor had not even personally arranged the marriages of the princesses. They were all arranged by Empress Dowager Zhuang and Empress Xiao. Also, the imperial seal was such a precious item. How could the Emperor casually put it in a pile of picture albums? The Emperor had done it on purpose. From the moment she refused to admit that she had stolen Gu Jiao's invention, the Emperor had decided to punish her. The Emperor was not a temperamental tyrant. He had to have a good reason for punishing people. Thus, the imperial seal had been used. But the Emperor did not immediately punish her. What was the Emperor waiting for? While she was thinking, the door to the interrogation room opened. Eunuch Wei walked in. Gu Jinyu looked at him excitedly. "Eunuch Wei, you're here. Did His Majesty send you here?" I really didn't do it on purpose. I didn't know where the imperial seal was. Help me say a few good words in front of the Emperor." Eunuch Wei smiled faintly and sighed. "Look at what the princess is saying. I'm just a servant. How can I influence the Emperor's decision? Furthermore, the Emperor is in a fit of anger. I don't dare to rashly provoke the Emperor." Gu Jinyu was disappointed. "Then what do you want to do by coming here today? Is the Emperor going to give the order to punish me? I'm here today to show the princess a clear path." Eunuch Wei smiled and said, "The princess should know how serious the crime of damaging the imperial seal is. If the princess still wants to live, it's best that you tell the truth about the bellows." Gu Jinyu's expression gradually froze. The Emperor had said that the credit for the bellows belonged to the little divine doctor. That was right. He could not allow anyone to snatch it away, even if he did not announce it to the public. Especially when this person had slandered the little divine doctor for stealing her inspiration. She simply did not know what she was talking about. Eunuch Wei smiled coldly and said, "That's all I have to say. The princess is on her own. However, I have to remind the princess that the emperor's patience is limited." After Eunuch Wei left, Gu Jinyu slumped into the chair dejectedly. How did it become like this? Why did the emperor want to stand up for that country bumpkin? Didn't she just invent a bellows? What was so great about it? Other than this, what else did that girl know? Why was even the emperor protecting her? Gu Jinyu was furious. However, she was now in prison and had no way out. In the middle of the night, her personal maid came once. She had the maid enter the palace to beg Consort Shu. The emperor had already expected that Consort Shu would come to plead for Gu Jinyu. These few days, he had been staying with Empress Xiao with Qin Chuyu. Although Empress Xiao doted on her youngest son, he was always present. She could not do anything to the emperor even if she wanted to. Empress Xiao looked at the little fatty who was engrossed in eating fruits. Her expression was indescribable. "Your Majesty, are you still bringing little Qi over tomorrow?" The emperor: "Yes, I've been doting on him recently." Qin Chuyu, who was completely unaware of the situation, was speechless. In the blink of an eye, it was the end of February. In a few days, the results would be released. The capital's examinees did not even enjoy their meals. Outside the examination compound, examinees could be seen waiting for the results to be released. After more than 10 days of grading in isolation from the world, the work in the inner hall was nearing its end. "This is the last batch of papers." The vice president placed the last stack of papers in front of the president. The president rubbed his sore eyes and said, "Let's end the grading here for today. Everyone, please go and rest. We should be able to finish grading tomorrow." After grading, the apricot roll would be released in the afternoon. All the graders stood up with sore backs and walked out of their seats. They saluted the president. "Farewell, sir." The moon was dark and the wind was strong. Everyone had fallen asleep. Gu Jiao also lay on the bed in the east room. The weather at the end of February was still a little chilly. She was small and had a big temper, so she was not afraid of the cold. She covered herself with the quilt and fell into a deep sleep after a while. Then, she started dreaming again. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels can be read for free. Novels with connotations that you can't find online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/896428266/113621310. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Gu mobile reading website, zhbqg.com. Chapter 208. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet are all available here. She dreamed that Xiao Lulang lived up to everyone's expectations and got first place. It was the biggest upset in the history of the spring examination. No one expected that an unknown country bumpkin would be able to defeat An Junwang and win the Hui Yuan. Those people who had spent a lot of money on An Junwang's first place all cried to death. Gu Jiao made a huge profit. 1,000 taels became 11,000 taels. The neighbors also made a lot of money. Gu Jiao felt strange when she dreamt of this. Oh, her husband was unlucky this time? It turned out that she was happy too early. Xiao Lulang was indeed an upset this time. However, Royal Prince and didn't even make it to the bottom. It was the biggest upset this year. With Royal Prince An's intelligence, it was unbelievable that he didn't even pass the examination to be a tribute scholar. royal prince, and didn't believe it himself. He went to the Ministry of Rites to check his exam papers. However, he found that his exam papers were missing. The emperor ordered a thorough investigation. In the end, it was found that a transcriber had tampered with Royal Prince Anne's exam papers. Gu Jiao didn't know who ordered him to do this in her dream. If other people encountered this, they could only sigh that they were unlucky. However, with the power of the Zhuang family, they wouldn't allow Royal Prince Anne to be wronged like this. In addition, many examinees went to the examination compound to question his results. After some consideration, the emperor restarted the examination. The examination was restarted. The Cool Breeze gang made a new bet. This time, there were more people who bet on Xiao Lulang. Everyone found this dark horse. Not many people bet on him to get first place. However, the number of people who bet on him to be in the top 3 reached an incredible amount. In order to get this huge amount of money, the Cool Breeze gang went to Xiao Lulang and tried to bribe him to fail the examination. However, they were rejected by Xiao Lulang. Seeing that the soft approach didn't work, the Cool Breeze gang tried the hard approach. However, they were all resolved by Xiao Lulang. In terms of a battle of wits, Xiao Lulang never lost. Of course, when it came to luck, he had never won. On the day that Xiao Lulang entered the examination hall, his carriage collided with another examinee's carriage. He was severely injured and did not successfully enter the examination hall. As for Royal Prince An, his situation wasn't any better than Xiao Liulong's. On the day of the exam, there was a problem in the examination hall. The exam didn't start until noon, and now it was late at night. However, Royal Prince An had night blindness. He couldn't see at night, so he didn't finish the test paper. In the end, he also had a miserable ending. After waking up from the dream, Gu Jiao sat on the bed in a daze. Am I that unlucky? To prevent a tragedy from happening, the safest way was to help Xiao Lulang avoid the car accident on the day of the retest. This was not difficult. Gu Jiao knew the location and time of the accident. The reason why it was said to be the safest method was because Commandery Prince An couldn't finish the test paper because it was dark. Without Commandery Prince An, Gu Jiao was confident that Xiao Lulang could easily win the competition. Another way was to directly prevent Royal Prince An's test paper from being taken away. As long as Royal Prince An's test paper was successfully marked, then no matter what the result was, there wouldn't be a retest. However, this method had a certain risk. After all, the first examination in the spring was done during the day. Royal Prince An performed normally. What if he was the one who got first place? Gu Jiao thought for a while and decided to let Xiao Lulang make the decision. Gu Jiao put on her clothes and opened the door. With a creak, the door of the west room on the opposite side also opened. The two of them looked at each other in astonishment. You haven't slept yet? You haven't slept yet? The two of them spoke in unison. You first, Xiao Lulang said. Oh. Gu Jiao said, I'm awake. Xiao Lulang came out with an oil lamp. Me too. He paused and said, get up and drink some water. The water was on the table beside Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao poured him a bowl of water and handed it to him. She said, if your opponent fell into the water before the exam, would you save him? No. Xiao Lulang held the tea bowl and said without hesitation. Why? Gu Jiao blinked and looked at him. Xiao Lulang put down the tea bowl indifferently. Because I don't have an opponent. Gu Jiao's mouth twitched. Was he that arrogant? After Xiao Lulang drank the tea, the two of them went back to their rooms. However, Gu Jiao didn't go to sleep. She changed into her black clothes and sneaked out of the alley. She went to the clinic and entered her courtyard from the back door. Gu Chenglin was now living in her courtyard. Gu Chengfeng finished his mission and climbed over the wall into the courtyard. He then entered Gu Chenglin's room. He started to take off his night clothes. Halfway through, a cold voice came from the darkness. You don't have to take it off. Put it back on. Gu Chengfeng was so frightened that he stumbled forward and almost hit a pillar. He quickly tightened his belt and turned around. He looked at the small figure sitting on the chair in horror and flew into a rage. "Why are you here?" "Looking for you," Gu Jiao said. Gu Chenglin flipped over. Gu Chengfeng's roar was stuck in his throat. He gritted his teeth and glared at Gu Jiao. "Why didn't you say anything earlier?" I. You only said something after taking off your pants." Gu Jiao stood up and walked past him out of the room. "Let's go." She obviously wasn't saying goodbye to him. She wasn't so polite to him, so she was asking him to go with her? Go where? Gu Chengfeng's vigilant gaze fell on her small back. "What do you want to do? Are you coming or not?" Gu Jiao turned around and pointed at Gu Chenglin on the bed. "If you don't come, I'll kick him out tomorrow." Gu Chengfeng gritted his teeth. "You win." Gu Jiao walked forward and waved her hand behind his back. "Don't worry. There's a reward. I won't mistreat you." Tomorrow was the day the results would be released. They had to find Royal Prince Anne's exam paper before the results were released and put it in the last pile of unmarked exam papers. Thanks to the rules of the Imperial Examination Court, all the officials in the inner hall were not allowed to step out of the inner hall before the results were released. They had to eat, drink, and go to the toilet inside. Therefore, even though the copying supervisor had taken Royal Prince Anne's exam paper, he didn't have the chance to take it out and deal with it. "Why did you bring me here?" Gu Chengfeng stood under the walls of the Imperial Examination Court and asked. Gu Jiao raised her eyebrows and looked at him from head to toe. She had an expression that said, "Don't you know what you're doing?" Gu Chengfeng was so angry that he trembled. He clenched his fists and squeezed out a few words from between his teeth. "Steal what?" 15 minutes later, Gu Chengfeng successfully sneaked into the inner hall. All the officials were asleep. Only the patrolling Imperial Guards were vigilant around the hall. Gu Chengfeng went through the rooms one by one. The copying officers were all men. They were about the same age. As for their appearance, it was dark. Who didn't have a nose and 2 eyes? However, to be able to become the #1 thief in the capital, Fei Shuang had his own way of identifying people. He quickly found the copying officer whose appearance and figure matched Gu Jiao's description. Gu Jiao didn't say where he hid the exam paper. This part didn't exist in the dream. Gu Chengfeng looked up and down and finally found Royal Prince Anne's exam paper in his shoe. It was no wonder no one found it when he hid it in his shoe. Gu Chengfeng had covered his face. But that smell. Gu Chengfeng resisted the urge to vomit. He used 2 fingers to pick up Royal Prince Anne's exam paper. There were 2 sets of exam papers. One was written by Royal Prince Anne himself. The other was written by the copying officer. Gu Chengfeng first put the black paper into the file. Then, he put the red paper into the last stack of exam papers waiting to be marked. Of course, he couldn't just put it in like this. This was because the last stack of exam papers was the best exam papers selected by the previous copying officers. They all had the grades they had marked. Royal Prince Anne's red paper was hidden from the start. Therefore, no one had marked it yet. Gu Chengfeng had to imitate the other copying officer's handwriting. He randomly marked a few A's. Needless to say, it was quite convincing. These days, one couldn't be a thief without some talent. After doing all this, Gu Chengfeng left the examination hall. Gu Jiao covered her nose and looked at him with disdain. "You stink." Gu Chengfeng. Yes, I stink. Who the hell am I doing this for? Where's the reward?" Gu Chengfeng reached out his hand coldly. Gu Jiao flicked her finger and a copper coin flew out. It landed right in Gu Chengfeng's palm. Gu Chengfeng looked at the lonely copper coin in his palm and almost cursed it out loud. He took the risk of being beheaded to enter the examination hall and touch the exam papers. In the end, he only got a copper coin? A copper plate. Gu Jiao turned her small body and put her small hands behind her back. She walked back confidently and majestically. "No need to thank me. See you later." Gu Chengfeng wanted to vomit blood. The next morning, the the copying officer woke up and found that the exam papers in his shoes were gone. He panicked. He was worried that one of his colleagues or the Imperial Guards had found out. He waited in fear for someone to pick him up. Unexpectedly, the whole morning passed and no one seemed to know about this. On the contrary, when he went to mark the exam papers, the hall was filled with an indescribable stench. After careful inspection, the stench came from one of the exam papers. How come he didn't notice that the exam papers were so smelly yesterday? In order not to affect the CEO's judgment of the exam papers, the CEO handed the exam papers to a copying officer. Copy it again. Yes. The one who was assigned to copy it was another copying officer. He copied the exam papers obediently. At noon, all the exam papers were marked. In the afternoon, the inner hall was opened. A list was sent to the Emperor under the escort of the Ministry of Right's presiding officer and the Imperial Guards. The Emperor read it and handed it over to the cabinet to be stamped. The next morning, the examination hall finally released the results of all the students. Digression: guess who got first place? The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642/896428826/11361845. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Biku Gu mobile reading website, zhhbqg.com. Chapter 209. Please scan the QR code below to download the app for more exciting content. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet are all available here. The Imperial College received the news yesterday that the results would be released today, so the Imperial College decided to give the Imperial College students a day off. The elementary school had nothing to do with the Imperial exam, so they went to school as usual. In the past, Xiao Lulang was on holiday, while little Jing Kong was on holiday. Xiao Lulang was not on holiday, while little Jing Kong was on holiday. This time, little Jing Kong went to school alone. Little Jing Kong looked bitter. Who said that the elementary school students have nothing to do with the Imperial exam? I have to go and see how my son is doing. Little Jing Kong carried his school bag and put his hands behind his back. He leaned forward slightly and walked away from Master Zhao, who was walking next door. His little face scrunched up and he sighed. He was so worried that he could die. Master Zhao looked like this when he was worried about his youngest son, who was the most worrisome. Xiao Lulang was not in a hurry to see the results. On the contrary, the neighbors swarmed over. They had placed a bet and had to see the results. Feng Lin and Lin Qingye also went. They woke up in the middle of the night and had been waiting at the entrance of the tribute court. Along with the two of them, there were also quite a number of eager examinees. The gate of the tribute court opened at 7 in the morning. 2 guards came out and posted the tribute scholar list on the notice board. The tribute scholar list was also called the apricot list because the apricot flowers were in full bloom during the imperial exam. Feng Lin and Lin Qingye rushed to the front of the apricot list. They looked down from the first place. Huiwan. It can't be. They were shocked at the same time. The first place was Xiao Lulang. But it was not only Xiao Lulang. There was also Royal Prince N. There were 2 Huiyuan in this year's apricot list. This was the reason why the 2 of them were dumbfounded. Others might not understand Xiao Liulong's strength, but they had been taught by Xiao Lulang for so long, so how could they not understand? However, Royal Prince N was indeed powerful. In addition, his family background was far superior to Xiao Liulong's. Therefore, it was not surprising for Royal Prince N to win first place. Strangely, they were tied for first place. In the entire history of the Zhao country, there had never been such a shocking thing. There was actually a reason for this. In the exam, only those with Grand Complete Exam Papers A were qualified to become Critical Exam Papers. Normally, after the exam, the CEO would not allow 2 Grand Complete Exam Papers A to appear. In other words, there was only one critical exam paper. Something went wrong with the test this time. Thanks to the cheating transcriber, An Juanwang's paper was delayed and Xiao Liulong's paper was marked first. When the graders finished marking all the test papers for the 3 rounds, they picked out the top 200 test papers and handed them over to the 2 CEOs. These test papers were not separated one by one. The 3 test papers were placed together according to their numbers and were called one set. Among these test papers, the ones that were marked by all the graders were called Grand Complete Exam Papers. When the Grand Complete Exam Papers were given to the 2 CEOs, they received 2 A's. This was called Grand Complete Exam Papers. When the 2 CEOs marked the test paper with number 69, they were instantly stunned by the examinee's strength. This time, the 2 CEOs were all disciples of Grand Tutor Zhuang. The CEOs were naturally biased towards An Juanwang. Before this, they had a certain understanding of An Juanwang's style of writing. To be honest, when they saw the transcribed test paper, they felt that it was not very similar to An Juanwang's style of writing. But this test paper was really too well done. It was too exquisite. It was completely beyond their imagination. It was the kind of indescribable excellence. Other than An Juanwang, no one else in the world could write such a powerful essay. Therefore, even though they felt it was strange, the 2 were still certain that this was An Juanwang's test paper and gave 2 A's. Xiao Liulong's test paper received Grand Complete Exam Papers. On the last day, when the 2 of them marked the real An Juanwang's test paper, they felt a sense of familiarity. Although they did not want to admit it, this seemed to be An Juanwang's style of writing. But if this was An Juanwang, who was that? Under everyone's gaze, the 2 of them could not change the Grand Complete Exam Papers from before. It was easy to add words like Gu Cheng Feng, but it was impossible to erase the words. The 2 of them could only bite the bullet and continue to give An Juanwang 2 A's. In the past, when this happened, the apricot roll and their test papers would be sent to the palace for the emperor and the cabinet to decide. There were still only numbers on the test papers and no names. But everyone knew that one of the test papers must be An Juanwang's. After the emperor looked at the test papers, he did not make a decision immediately. Instead, he called Grand Tutor Zhuang over and let him choose. Grand Tutor Zhuang snorted in his heart. What was there to choose? In today's world, could any random person be mentioned in the same breath as his grandson? However, when he looked at the 2 test papers with disdain, he was suddenly speechless. He was An Juanwang's grandfather. Of course, he could recognize which style of writing belonged to An Juanwang. The emperor asked, "Do we still need to call the other cabinet ministers over to choose the test papers?" Grand Tutor Zhuang cupped his hands and said, "No need. Everything will be decided by your majesty." The emperor smiled and said, "I think these 2 test papers are good. Why don't we tie for first place? What do you think, Grand Tutor?" Grand Tutor Zhuang was relieved. "Your majesty is wise." For Grand Tutor Zhuang to tolerate another person tying for first place with his grandson, it was obvious how good the other person's test paper was. There was no way to criticize it. As long as there was something that could be argued, Grand Tutor Zhuang would never allow this tie for first place. However, the emperor could not suppress An Juanwang all of a sudden. Currently, the cabinet was still controlled by Grand Tutor Zhuang. If the examinees wanted to become officials, they must first fall into Grand Tutor Zhuang's hands. In a corner of the palace, 2 men's voices came from behind a tree. "What are you doing? Didn't someone take it away? Why did it still appear?" Lord Tong said that he did hide An Juanwang's test paper. However, for some reason, An Juanwang's test paper appeared on the last day. He suspects that it was a ghost. How can there be ghosts in this world? If it wasn't a ghost, then why didn't the other party expose Lord Tong? That's true. Then, the next step of the plan. What next step of the plan is there? The apricot roll is already out. Do you think you can retake the exam? The original plan was to lose Juan Wang's test paper. With the Zhuang family's power, it would not be difficult to find out that the test paper was lost. They would definitely find a way to retake the exam. During the first exam, they did not do anything because they only found out about Juan Wang's weakness 2 days before the exam. At that time, they did not have enough time to make a thorough plan. They could only use a roundabout method to make the exam retake the exam. At that time, they would make some mistakes in the exam hall and delay the opening of the test papers. Juan Wang would not be able to see it at night and would naturally fail the exam. What a pity! Xiao Lulang and Juan Wang won the Huiyuan at the same time. The Qing Feng gang lost a lot of money. Gu Jiao's 1,000 taels of silver successfully became 11,000 taels of silver. Happy! The neighbors in Bai Shui Alley all bet on Xiao Lulang getting first place. He did get first place. Wasn't being tied for first place the same as getting first place? The Huiyuan's title was already in the imperial court. How could a small Qing Feng gang not admit it? The Qing Feng gang cried miserably. The neighbors made a lot of money and hurried to the old lady to play cards with leaves. The old lady, very good. The wallets are full. The sheep are fat. It's time to slaughter. It's all because of her. The old chancellor just came back from outside. As soon as he got off the carriage, the old lady grabbed him by the collar and dragged him to Master Zhao and Aunt Zhao's house next door to play cards. He was mainly responsible for carrying money. Feng Lin also passed the exam this time. He was almost at the bottom of the list. He was the 176th place. There was a total of 210 places. During the provincial examination, he was the 17th place in Yuzhou. When he came to the capital, he was the 170th place. This difference was very frustrating. However, he could be considered to have done well. In Yuzhou's provincial examination, there were a few people who were ranked higher than him who failed. There were not many people who were ranked higher than him. This was really a fight between immortals. It was too fierce. Lin Qingye was also on the list. His result was not bad. He was the 123rd place. One had to know that during the provincial examination, Yuzhou had a total of 50 people. He was ranked 45th and almost did not pass the provincial examination. Lin Qingye was so happy that he was dumbfounded. He did not waste the few thousand taels of silver. Liulong's master was too amazing. Feng Lin nodded deeply and looked at him. As expected of a player who paid with money, Du Ruhan was ranked 15th on the list. It was slightly different from what he had imagined. His goal was to be in the top 10. However, this was also a good ranking. After all, it was the national examination. Only the top students were admitted. The examination was held once every 3 years and there were only 210 people who were admitted. Du Ruhan was not someone who bit off more than he could chew. He was also not overly arrogant and self-confident. He quickly accepted his result and was satisfied with it. Of course, he also understood that he was able to pass the examination thanks to Gu Jiao. If not for the cold medicine she gave him, he would have collapsed in the first round. This was not the provincial examination or the county examination where there was a huge gap in strength between the examinees. The examinees were all outstanding. If one did not do well, they would often be left behind by more than 10 places. It could be the gap between the top and bottom of the list. That night, Du Ruhan carried many bags of things to Jadewater Alley. Ever since the news of Xiao Lulang passing the provincial examination spread out, the doorstep of the house was almost broken by people. Feng Lin and Lin Qingye also came. Thus, when he saw Du Ruhan, Xiao Lulang was not too surprised. It was just the things in his hands. Xiao Lulang saw that he was almost unable to carry them and said politely, "It's just the provincial examination. There's no need to make such a big fuss." "Jiaonyang, I'm here." Du Ruhan excitedly ran into the house. He was exactly the same type as Feng Lin. Xiao Liulong's face darkened. Just like in Gu Jiao's dream, Xiao Lulang broke the biggest dark horse in the history of the spring examinations. Because of Royal Prince N, Xiao Liulong's first place was even more valuable in the eyes of the public. He was tied with Royal Prince and for first place. How heaven-defying was this poor boy! This news spread much faster than the explosion at the Ministry of Works. In just a day, the news had spread throughout the capital. Naturally, it also reached Marquis Xian Ping's ears. Marquis Xian Ping had a "don't lie to me" expression. Who got first place? Young master, Steward Lu said with a smile. He also bet on Xiao Lulang and won 100 taels. It was Gu Jiao who bet on him. At that time, he felt his heart ache. Now his heart was bursting with joy. After the joy, he regretted it. Why didn't he bring an extra 180 taels of silver that day? Marquis Xian Ping's handsome face was full of suspicion. He was that amazing. He gave birth to another genius son? He kept feeling that something was wrong. Aya, why can't you give birth to a smart son? Isn't the young Marquis very smart? Marquis Xian Ping still had some self-awareness. Xiao Hang was smart not because he took after him. If he took after him, then he would be an uncouth old man. Xiao Hang took after his mother. He was smart, refined, meticulous, and knowledgeable. So who did this illegitimate son take after? Chen Yun's mother? Chen Yun's mother was a gentle and kind woman, but she didn't have this kind of brain. Marquis Xian Ping said with a serious expression, "Call those old antiques over. Also, bring me Xiao Liulong's test papers." All of the examinees' test papers were archived in the Ministry of Rights. Normal people wouldn't be able to get their hands on them. However, Marquis Xian Ping was not a normal person. Sometimes, he wasn't even human. Steward Lu obtained Xiao Liulong's handwritten ink scroll. Chong Jing also found a few old scholars with grizzled hair and beard who walked unsteadily. Marquis Xian Ping had them compare Xiao Liulong's test papers with Xiao Heng's test papers. The two people's test papers stunned all of the old scholars. Was this written by the same person? Marquis Xian Ping asked in a deep voice. No. One look and you can tell it's not. The old scholars all shook their heads. Are you sure? Marquis Xian Ping looked at them suspiciously. Marquis, if we can't even tell the difference between a person's literary talent, then we've lived in vain all these years. Not only are the two people's handwriting different, but their way of writing and thinking are also completely different. One was the day and the other was the night. Xiao Heng's test papers made people feel like they were bathing in the spring breeze and their minds were clear. Xiao Liulong's test papers were like ice and snow, cutting into people's hearts. If it was the same person, how much pain and torture must he have gone through to be able to scrape his own bones like this? The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_826/113588372. HTML Genius remembers this site's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Pavilion Mobile Reading Website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 210. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all here. Marquis Xian Ping decided to personally meet Xiao Lulang. Where does he live? Marquis Xian Ping asked Steward Lu. Clearwater Alley. Steward Lu told him the specific address of Xiao Lulang and Gu Jiao. Marquis Xian Ping rode a carriage to Clearwater Alley. It was Chong Jing who drove the carriage. Xiao Lulang was admitted to Huiyuan. Today, the alley was especially lively. The entrance of the alley was blocked by carriages. Marquis Xian Ping's carriage couldn't enter. He sighed. He didn't know that it was so difficult to meet an illegitimate child. Marquis Xian Ping abandoned the carriage and walked on foot. Chong Jing followed behind him. The two men entered the alley one after the other. They didn't need directions to know which house belonged to the little illegitimate child. The door was wide open and people came and went from time to time. Marquis Xian Ping suddenly said to Chong Jing, "Find a place to squat. No matter what happens later, don't come over." Chong Jing, "Oh." Marquis Xian Ping then went to Xiao Lulang and Gu Jiao's house. His original intention was for Chong Jing to find a place to quietly wait. But Chong Jing was a person who got full marks for execution. He found a small corner and stuffed his hands into his sleeves. He looked like a peasant and squatted facing the wall. When Marquis Xian Ping arrived at the house, a group of guests had just left. Xiao Lulang was about to close the door when a large hand pressed against it. Xiao Lulang opened the courtyard door to take a look. Marquis Xian Ping. Very good, no expression at all. Every day, Xiao Lulang became calmer in dealing with matters. He calmly glanced at Marquis Xian Ping and said, "Is there something you need?" With this cold attitude, if he really was Xiao Hang, Marquis Xian Ping's heart would burst with anger. Marquis Xian Ping took a deep breath and said, "Are you?" "No." Xiao Lulang interrupted him rudely. Marquis Xian Ping tilted his head slightly and looked at him with a puzzled frown. "Not what?" "I'm not done yet." Xiao Liulong's expression didn't change in the slightest. "Even if you ask, you won't be able to." Marquis Xian Ping's breath was stuck in his chest. Xiao Lulang removed his hand from the door. Marquis Xian Ping Ho thought he was going to do something, but in the end, he saw him close the door. Marquis Xian Ping, this brat. Of course, Xian Ping Ho had grown up in the military, so his skills were not for show. He took a big stride forward and dashed in. Bang! The door was closed, but Marquis Xian Ping was in the courtyard. Marquis Xian Ping raised his eyebrows and glanced at him. Xiao Lulang had no intention of paying attention to him. He turned around, intending to walk around him and enter the house. Xian Ping Ho had expected him to be like this. His eyes narrowed as he covered his chest and coughed violently. As he coughed, he covered his mouth with a white handkerchief that he had prepared beforehand. When he removed the handkerchief, it was stained with blood. Yes, he was coughing up blood. He had old injuries on his body. A few years ago, during the battle with the Chen state, he went into battle with injuries. He won, but his old injuries became more serious. Xiao Heng also understood this point. Marquis Xian Ping deliberately spread the handkerchief flat. "I'll show you," coughing up blood. However, Xiao Lulang didn't even look at it. "Can't even do this?" Marquis Xian Ping gritted his teeth and directly fell to the ground. In terms of shamelessness, if Marquis Xian Ping claimed to be second in the entire capital, no one would dare to claim to be first. Marquis Xian Ping had made up his mind to blackmail Xiao Lulang. He stood in front of Xiao Lulang and blocked the way. However, he didn't expect this little heartless guy to raise his leg and step over him without saying anything. Marquis Xian Ping was speechless. This wasn't the scariest thing. As soon as Xiao Lulang left, little Jing Kong ran over. Little Jing Kong looked at Marquis Xian Ping, who had fallen to the ground. "Oh, someone fainted here. Isn't this the handsome uncle I saw at the courier station last time?" Xiao Lulang, "Yes, treat him." Little Jing Kong, "Oh, but how should I treat him?" Xiao Lulang, "Treat him the way Jiao Jiao treats him." Little Jing Kong tilted his head and thought for a while. Then, he squatted down and used his little hands to press on Marquis Xian's chest. This was how Gu Jiao treated patients. He imitated it very well and his movements were also very standard. The only flaw was that he was too weak and couldn't press for a long time. Therefore, he decided to use his feet. He kicked off his shoes and jumped onto Marquis Xian Ping's body. Marquis Xian Ping's body tensed up. What the hell? Little Jing Kong stepped on his chest, trembling. Marquis Xianping. Little brat, you're a bit heavy. Xiao Lulang calmly watched Marquis Xianping scam. Marquis Xianping had to continue with his act. Oh no, it's useless. Little Jing Kong jumped onto the ground. I'm going to perform mouth-to-mouth resuscitation on you. Marquis Xianping. What do you mean? Little Jing Kong opened his mouth, took a deep breath, and pouted. Let go of that, Lord, let me do it. Auntie Lu, who lived next door, ran over while holding her dress. Marquis Xianping trembled all over. He opened his eyes and sat up. I'm done. Auntie Lu's face darkened. Marquis Xianping failed and left gloomily. However, he was lucky enough to meet the old chancellor the moment he walked out of the alley. The old chancellor had just come out of Master Zhao's house. He didn't expect Marquis Xianping to appear here. He saw a tall figure from the corner of his eye and didn't take it seriously. Until Marquis Xianping called, Chancellor Hua? The familiar voice and address made the old chancellor's eyebrows twitch. He stopped and looked at him in astonishment. Marquis Xiao? Although the old chancellor's official rank was not as high as Marquis Xianping's, he was older than Marquis Xianping. Besides, he was Xiao Heng's teacher. Therefore, he was closer to Marquis Xianping than other people, but not too close. He didn't belong to Marquis Xianping's camp. To be exact, he didn't join any camp. The differences between him and Empress Dowager Zhuang were old grudges and had nothing to do with Marquis Xianping and the emperor. Therefore, he didn't call him Marquis Xianping like Grand Tutor Zhuang, nor did he call him Marquis like a trusted aide. Marquis Xianping asked suspiciously, Why are you here, old chancellor? The old chancellor was about to say that he was passing by when old Madame Zhao's voice came from Master Zhao's house. Hurry up. It's only a few steps. Why are you so slow when you're going home to get something? The old chancellor's heart skipped a beat. Empress Dowager Zhuang was not a good person, and neither was Marquis Xianping. Marquis Xianping had always wanted to get rid of Empress Dowager Zhuang. Of course, the two families were at odds with each other, but there was another very important reason. Empress Dowager Zhuang had once poisoned Xiao Hang. When Xiao Hang was only 5 years old, he entered the palace to pay respects to the emperor and empress. As a result, he was poisoned by Empress Dowager Zhuang and almost died on the spot. Whether or not there was a misunderstanding, it was unknown. Either way, ever since then, Marquis Xianping and Empress Dowager Zhuang's grudge was formed. If he found out that Empress Dowager Zhuang was here, perhaps she would immediately lose her life. Empress Dowager Zhuang definitely put on airs in the imperial palace. She always had a reserved, noble, elegant, cold and domineering tone. It definitely wasn't this sloppy tone. Marquis Xianping actually didn't hear it, but the content was thought-provoking. Marquis Xianping squinted his eyes. Chancellor Hua actually lives here? Living next door to Wei Hing's house? The old chancellor's heart skipped a beat, but his expression didn't change. I'm no longer the imperial chancellor. Marquis Xianping sneered, Old slippery fellow, don't change the topic. Do you live next door to Wei Hing? The old chancellor sternly said, Marquis Xiao, how come I don't understand what you're saying? Marquis Xianping did not continue speaking. He patted the old chancellor's shoulder with a look that said this, then turned and left. But before he took a few steps, he suddenly stopped. Slightly tilting his head, he quietly laughed. I just mentioned a Heng, but you weren't sad in the slightest. The old chancellor inhaled sharply. Who said that Marquis Xianping only knew how to fight and had no brains? This guy was really crafty when he wanted to. It was all because he distracted that demon empress. If he wasn't thinking about how to prevent Marquis Xianping from discovering him, how could he have made such an oversight? Marquis isn't me. How do you know I won't be sad? He felt that he could still make up for it. Is that so? Marquis Xianping laughed ambiguously. This time he really didn't continue speaking. Chongjing, let's go. Oh. After squatting for half an hour, his legs were numb from squatting. With his legs crossed, he limped out. Marquis Xian Ping looked at him with disdain. What's wrong with you? You took too big a step and pulled your balls? Chong Jing. Only Xiao Lulang and the old chancellor understood Marquis Xian Ping's little episode. The others just thought that he was a guest who came to visit. When Gu Jiao came back from buying groceries, little Jing Kong told her that he saved someone. Gu Jiao thought that he was a guest and joked with him. Little Jing Kong put his hands behind his back and looked at Gu Jiao with a mischievous look. Quickly praise me, praise me, praise me. Jing Kong is really great. Gu Jiao praised him. Little Jing Kong tilted his head and said cutely, Is it just a verbal reward, Jiao Jiao? Gu Jiao gave him a small kiss. Little Jing Kong was so happy that he jumped and shook his head. He was so cute. Gu Jiao's heart almost melted. With a smile on her lips, she went into the kitchen to prepare dinner. Some guests saw that little Jing Kong was so cute and hurriedly waved at him, wanting to tease this little Jing Kong. Unexpectedly, little Jing Kong ended the business in a second. He put away the cute expression on his face and put on a serious and old-fashioned expression. He put his little hands behind his back and walked back to his small west room like Uncle Zhao. Everyone, the latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_89642/1135855052. HTML Genius remembered the website address in a second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Pavilion Mobile Reading Website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 211. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. The whole family was happy that Xiao Lulang was admitted to Hui Yuan. The old chancellor didn't say anything, but the smile in his eyes couldn't be hidden. Even though he thought that with his disciple's ability, there was no doubt that he would be admitted to Hui Yuan, it didn't stop him from being happy. He cooked a few more dishes for dinner, and the whole family had a hearty meal. The old lady gave Xiao Lulang a big red envelope. She also gave Gu Jiao the money she won from playing cards with Yi Zi today. Her grandnephew had a hard time taking the exam, and Zhao Jiao had a harder time taking care of this brat. Xiao Lulang accepted the red envelope and turned to give it to Gu Jiao. Cough, household expenses. He said seriously. Oh. Gu Jiao accepted it. The money earned by Qing Feng Gang wasn't as good as the money given by her husband. Are there any more exams? Gu Jiao asked. There are. Xiao Lulang said, there will be a second exam at the end of March, and the court exam in April. The so-called second exam was actually more like a roll call exam. It didn't have much meaning, and it didn't count towards the results. It was said that it was to compare handwriting and prevent people from cheating in the spring examination. The court exam was the next highlight. The court exam was personally presided over by the emperor, and the 9 ministers were invigilators. All the examinees sat under their eyes and answered the questions. One could imagine the pressure. In the previous dynasty, the court exam only lasted for 1 day. In this dynasty, in order to better select talents, the exam was changed to 1 day of examination paper and 1 day of face-to-face examination. But not all examinees had the opportunity to take the face-to-face examination. Basically, only the outstanding examinees in the first round of examination could be summoned by the emperor to be personally examined by him. Of course, if the emperor was willing, he could casually pick someone to answer the questions in the first round of examination. This was a test of the examinees' psychological quality and improvisation. Some examinees were very knowledgeable, but they were too timid and couldn't perform well in the court exam. Therefore, their current ranking didn't mean that they could achieve the same results in the court exam. Xiao Lulang also encouraged Feng Lin and Lin Chenye in the same way. He wanted the two of them to focus on the examination. "You won't be able to pass?" Gu Jiao asked. "That won't happen," Xiao Lulang explained patiently. The court examination didn't have a ranking system. In other words, as long as one passed the examination, one would have a chance to become a grand scholar. However, grand scholars were also divided into different levels. The top 3 in the court examination were called the first-rank scholars. There were the Zhuangyuan, the Banyan, and the Tanhua, and they were bestowed the title of scholar. The second rank was bestowed with the title of Jinshi, while the third rank was bestowed with the title of Jinshi. First and second place grand scholars were considered official grand scholars. Third place grand scholars were said to be equivalent to grand scholars, but in reality, they still failed to make the list. Giving a grand scholar title was a consolation for those who failed the list. It was unlikely that those who failed the examination would be able to develop themselves in the capital. At most, they would be able to become a county magistrate of the 7th or 8th rank. First-place grand scholars could directly enter the Hanlin Academy. Second and third place grand scholars would take another court exam. Those who passed were called Shuji scholars. Shuji scholars would study for 3 years and pass the exam to enter the Hanlin Academy. The Hanlin Academy was the place where the talents of the Zhao country were stored. There was a saying, "Only grand scholars could enter the Hanlin Academy." Those who weren't in the Hanlin Academy couldn't enter the imperial cabinet. The Hanlin Academy was the place that all examinees dreamed of going to. In reality, entering the Hanlin Academy didn't mean that one would have a meteoric rise. The Hanlin Academy also had its exams and rules. That was a story for later. Gu Jiao pondered for a moment. She had already become the wife of a tribute scholar. The next step was to become the wife of a grand scholar. "Who's third?" she asked. Because Xiao Lulang and Njun Wang were tied for first place, there was no second place. The next person was the third place. The third-place tribute scholar was a classmate of Xiao Liulong's with the surname Chao. He was 30 years old this year. He wasn't a native of the capital. Back in his hometown, he had made a name for himself at a young age. He had taken the exams a few times and failed to pass. This year, he passed the imperial examination in spring and became a tribute scholar. Gu Jiao remembered that this name wasn't on the betting list of the Cool Breeze gang. He must be a dark horse. However, due to Xiao Liulong's reputation, not many people paid attention to him. At dinner, the whole family was full. Perhaps because they were happy, everyone ate more than usual, except for little Jing Kong. As the only child in the family, little Jing Kong was always vigilant in times of peace. This time, his bad brother-in-law tied for first place with someone else. Everyone was so happy just because they tied for first place. It was obvious that they didn't expect much from him. It was obvious that he was a poor student. Little Jing Kong decided to remind his bad brother-in-law not to be too arrogant. He didn't want him to go back to square one. Of course, he also decided to give him a reward. "Reward me?" In the study, Xiao Lulang looked at little Jing Kong strangely. Did the sun rise from the west? Little monk wanted to reward him? Little Jing Kong put his little hands behind his back and nodded. His little face was serious as he said, "Teacher Jiang said that we should care for the weak." His bad brother-in-law was the last in the exam, so he was definitely in the weak. Xiao Lulang pointed at the paper on the table and said, "Please, I got first place in the exam." Little Jing Kong snorted and said, "Just tied for first place." Xiao Lulang looked at him in both anger and amusement. "Then why don't you take the exam for me to see? Wait for me to grow up." Little Jing Kong was full of confidence. Xiao Lulang didn't know whether to laugh or cry and said, "Well, what are you going to reward me with?" Little Jing Kong asked, "What do you want?" What could Xiao Lulang ask him for? He couldn't ask him to rent for free. Xiao Lulang thought for a moment and thought of something that he coveted. "It's a gift from Jiao Jiao on your birthday." Little Jing Kong was furious. You're too much. You want to take away the gift from Jiao Jiao. Xiao Lulang spread his hands innocently and said, You asked me what I want, and now I'm telling you. Little Jing Kong frowned. He was a good boy who kept his word. He couldn't go back on his words. He endured the pain and asked, You want the checkers that Jiao Jiao gave me? Xiao Lulang said, Why do I want the checkers? I want that. Little Jing Kong and Xiao Lulang had the same birthday. Gu Jiao Jiao gave both of them gifts. Besides the checkers, there was something else for little Jing Kong. Xiao Lulang was referring to the paper crane. Little Jing Kong clenched his fists tightly and looked at Xiao Lulang in disbelief and pain. You're a big man. Why do you want that? That's for us kids. Oh, he finally remembered that he was a kid? Xiao Lulang laughed and said, I want it. Are you giving it to me or not? It was as if Marquis Xian Ping was shameless. Little Jing Kong looked at Xiao Lulang with a complicated expression, as if saying, Oh my God, how can you be so confused? Little Jing Kong took a deep breath and closed his eyes. His expression was indescribable. After a while, he made up his mind and said, Okay, if you insist. As he spoke, he bravely took a step forward. Under Xiao Liulong's astonished gaze, he kissed him on the right cheek. Xiao Lulang was speechless. After little Jing Kong kissed him, both of them were in a bad mood. What kind of punishment is this, my God? Little Jing Kong. I sacrificed too much. Little Jing Kong was shocked. He stuck out his tongue, rolled his eyes, and went out in a frenzy. Xiao Lulang came back to his senses and shuddered, indicating that he was also shocked. When Gu Jiao entered the room, Xiao Liulong's mouth was still twitching. What's wrong? Gu Jiao looked at him in surprise. Xiao Lulang coughed softly and said, Nothing. It was so embarrassing that it was not worth mentioning. Gu Jiao walked into the room and handed him a small brocade box. This is. Xiao Lulang took the box and opened it. There was a red satin hairband inside. He was not yet a crown, so he could not wear one. He was also not used to using a hairpin. The original hairband was old. This was the color that Gu Jiao personally dyed. It complemented him perfectly. He was as cold as jade, yet as beautiful as peaches and plums. Is this a gift from Huiyuan? Xiao Lulang asked. Gu Jiao was stunned. Clearly not. Xiao Lulang lowered his eyes. He didn't say anything, but his appearance inexplicably revealed a trace of grievance. Gu Jiao suddenly felt that she had wronged her little husband. Xiao Lulang sighed and said, Jing Kong just gave me a gift. What happened to not mentioning it? Even Jing Kong gave him a gift. Wouldn't it be unreasonable if she did not give him a gift? Gu Jiao quickly asked, What gift do you want? Actually, it doesn't have to be too troublesome. Something simple will do. Xiao Lulang straightened his expression and said seriously, It's something that little Jing Kong has on my birthday, but I don't. The last time Xiao Lulang said this, he received a small kiss from Gu Jiao. Oh. Gu Jiao understood instantly. She turned around and left. When she entered the room again, she had a paper crane in her hand. Here. In Gu Jiao's opinion, little Jing Kong had on his birthday, but Xiao Lulang did not have a kiss and a paper crane. Since he had already given her a kiss, then the paper crane was the only thing left. Xiao Lulang, who did not want this paper crane at all, was speechless. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that cannot be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/8964286/113555252. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www ZHHBQG. Kombiku Gu mobile reading website, M. ZHHBQG. Com. Chapter 212. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found online are all available here. Zhuang Manor. A copy of the Apricot Roll Ranking was sent to Grand Tutor Zhuang and Royal Prince, and Grand Tutor Zhuang already knew the results of the top two. Other than Royal Prince An, there weren't any outstanding candidates in the Zhuang family. Therefore, Grand Tutor Zhuang put the Apricot Roll aside when it was sent over. Royal Prince An didn't look at it either. He had absolute confidence that he would get first place. He only asked, "Is there someone called Xiao Lulang on the roll?" Wu Yong replied, "Yes, he's tied for first place with the Royal Prince." Oh. Royal Prince An glanced sideways. Wu Yong handed the roll over again. Royal Prince An's gaze fell on Xiao Liulong's name. He raised his eyebrows slightly. "This Xiao Lulang is a bit out of my expectations." Wu Yong was about to speak when the servant girl outside said, "Master, you're here?" Wu Yong quickly retreated to the side and bowed to Grand Tutor Zhuang, who was walking in. Grand Tutor Zhuang waved his hand and Wu Yong respectfully retreated. Royal Prince An stood up and greeted with a pleasant expression, "Grandfather." "Mem." Grand Tutor Zhuang replied in a low voice. Royal Prince An walked around the desk and waited for Grand Tutor Zhuang to sit down on the chair with the official's hat before sitting down on another chair. A maidservant served the tea and then quickly left the room. The room was so quiet that only the sound of Grand Tutor Zhuang sipping his tea could be heard. Royal Prince An asked, "Grandfather, why haven't you rested yet?" "I came to see you." Grand Tutor Zhuang put down the hot tea in his hand and looked at him with a serious expression. "Have you seen the Apricot Roll?" Royal Prince An nodded. "I just saw it." Grand Tutor Zhuang said, "That Xiao Lulang is your classmate in the Imperial College?" "Yes." Royal Prince An nodded again. Grand Tutor Zhuang had been in the bureaucracy for many years. He could recognize shocking information with just a glance. He looked at his grandson suspiciously. "You know him?" Royal Prince An smiled and said, "Grandfather, do you still remember why I advised you to reopen the directorate?" Grand Tutor Zhuang furrowed his brows. "You said that the Empress Dowager lives in the home of an examinee. As long as that examinee enters the Imperial College, the Empress Dowager will also be brought to the capital. Could it be this person?" Royal Prince An said, "That's right, it's him." Grand Tutor Zhuang's eyes turned cold. Royal Prince An said, "Grandfather, don't get angry. He doesn't know Grandaunt's identity. I speculated that my grandaunt had accidentally fainted in front of his house when she was stranded in that village. Someone in his family who knew medicine recognized my grandaunt's leprosy. They were afraid that they would be sent to Leprosy Mountain, so they hid my grandaunt and even treated her." "It can cure leprosy?" Grand Tutor Zhuang expressed his doubts. Royal Prince An said, "I've seen Grandaunt. Her leprosy has indeed been cured." Grand Tutor Zhuang didn't believe that there was anyone in the world who could cure leprosy. Compared to this, he was more willing to believe that there was a mistake in the information from the beginning. Perhaps the Empress Dowager didn't have leprosy at all. It just looked like it. Royal Prince An didn't refute Grand Tutor Zhuang's guess. This wasn't important. The Empress Dowager had been cured. They only had to wait for them to deploy the situation in the capital and for the Empress Dowager to regain her memory. Then, their Zhuang family would be able to rise again. Grand Tutor Zhuang said in deep thought, "This examinee isn't simple." Royal Prince An didn't care and said, "It's just a huion. Grandfather, you don't have to take it to heart. I didn't put much effort into this exam." This was the truth. He really didn't put in all his effort. Xiao Lulang must have put in all his effort. Even so, to be able to tie with him for first place was still Xiao Liulong's ability. Royal Prince An had never met anyone who could compete with him since he was young. Although the young Marquis of Jiaodu was famous, in his opinion, it was only because he didn't meet him. If he didn't go to Chen country to be a hostage for almost 10 years, who knows who would be the #1 genius in Jiaodu? Royal Prince and continued, I plan to take this person for my own use. Grandfather, please don't touch him. It would be best if he could take him for his own use. After all, he knew too much. If he joined another camp, it would be disadvantageous for the entire Zhuang family. Grand Tutor Zhuang made a sound of agreement and said, If you say so, then I won't touch him for now. However, you have to understand that you can't lose to him again in the court exam. The Zhuang family didn't want a random genius. They wanted the #1 genius. I understand. Royal Prince and was confident of victory. He smiled faintly and said, I will do my best in the court exam. Grand Tutor Zhuang had said everything that needed to be said. This grandson of his always made him worry less. He didn't say anything else and got up to leave. He suddenly thought of something and turned around. In the darkness, his seemingly turbid eyes revealed a shrewdness and sharpness that even young people couldn't compare to. Do you have a sweetheart? Royal Prince and was startled. Grandfather, why do you say this? Grand Tutor Zhuang said, You aren't young anymore. Your aunt said that it's time to choose a marriage for you. Royal Prince An's eyes trembled slightly. I haven't turned 20 yet. What's the rush? In the country of Zhao, when a man turned 20, he would be considered an adult. Large families usually married after 20. Grand Tutor Zhuang said, I'm not telling you to get married now. First, I wanted to ask for a marriage with Imperial daughter Hui for you, but something happened to her. Your aunt has given up on this idea. If you have a girl that you like who is of equal status and has good looks, then tell your aunt. An image of a small figure wearing blue clothes carrying a basket flashed through Royal Prince An's mind. His expression did not change as he said, No. Grand Tutor Zhuang turned and left the room. Royal Prince An gave a small sigh. Of equal status. Marquis Ding and Fu seemed neutral, but the old Marquis and Marquis Xianping were the Emperor's left and right arms. She and he would never be of equal status. As for her looks, he did not care about her looks, but his aunt would not allow him to marry a girl with a disfigured face who had been married before. Ha! Royal Prince An laughed at himself. What's the point of asking me? While the entire capital was immersed in the shock brought about by the apricot roll, Gu Jinyu in the Ministry of Justice did not receive any news from the outside world. She was trapped in the interrogation room and could not eat or sleep well. His Majesty seemed to have made up his mind to deliberately break her will. He would not allow anyone to force a confession out of her, but he would also ignore her. She was alone and could not hold on any longer. She had not bathed for many days. She was not like Gu Jiao who had grown up in the countryside. It was fine if she did not bathe for 10 days to half a month. She loved cleanliness. Fortunately, Imperial concubine Shu's personal servant, Qi Mama, had come. The moment she saw Qi Mama, Gu Jinyu began to cry in grievance. All right. Imperial daughter, don't cry. If Imperial concubine knew, her heart would ache. Qi Mama wanted to hug her and comfort her, but she could not stand the smell on Gu Jinyu's body. Qi Mama cleared her throat. In the end, she stood beside Gu Jinyu and handed her a clean handkerchief. Gu Jinyu took the handkerchief and choked. Thank you for coming to see me, Mama. Qi Mama said, Imperial concubine wanted me to ask you, what happened to you? Did you really break the Imperial Jade Seal or did you do something else to anger His Majesty? Gu Jinyu's eyes flashed when she heard this. Imperial concubine, did you hear some rumors? Qi Mama had come to clarify the matter, so she spoke frankly. Someone in the palace is saying that you did not invent the bellows. It was someone else. Someone else? Who is it? Gu Jinyu asked carefully. Qi Mama pondered. I don't know. The rumor did not say who it was. Gu Jinyu lowered her head guiltily. Who had spread the rumor? His Majesty or the old blacksmith and carpenter? Didn't the three of them know about that girl? Gu Jinyu did not understand what was going on. She composed herself and asked, "Then, does imperial concubine believe it?" Chimama said, "Can imperial concubine believe it?" Gu Jinyu secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, her efforts over the years had not been in vain. Chimama sighed, "But these rumors are strange. Think carefully. Did anyone touch your blueprints, or did you mention the bellows to anyone?" It seemed that her father had not told Consort Shu that she and Gu Jiao had invented the bellows. He had not said anything for so long, so he probably would not say anything. Gu Jinyu hesitated whether to tell her about Gu Jiao. Consort Shu did not have a good impression of Gu Jiao. Firstly, Consort Shu did not like Consort Yao and did not like her children. Gu Jinyu was respected in front of her mainly because she was talented and had helped the fifth prince so much. Secondly, Gu Jiao did not return to the Marquis's residence and disrespected old Madame Gu and her aunt, Consort Shu. Logically speaking, when she returned to the capital, she should have asked to see Consort Shu, but that girl did not. Gu Jinyu did not dare to bet that Consort Shu would trust her like her father did. What if Consort Shu wanted to seek confirmation from Gu Jiao, or what if Consort Shu knew that His Majesty was actually biased towards Gu Jiao? Would Consort Shu still stand up for her? After weighing the pros and cons, Gu Jinyu finally gave up on the idea that Gu Jiao had stolen her inspiration. She shook her head. "I don't know. I've never mentioned it to anyone." Chimama looked at Gu Jinyu without blinking. "Then tell me, did you really invent the bellows?" So Aunt still did not believe her? After she had helped the fifth prince with his homework and acted as his substitute examiner for so many times? Gu Jinyu laughed at herself in her heart, but on the surface, she said aggrievedly, "Mama, is it you who don't believe me, or Aunt who doesn't believe me? I swear to God that I invented the bellows. If I'm lying, I'll be struck by lightning." Chimama hurriedly covered her mouth with a handkerchief and said angrily, "You can't speak carelessly. Her Majesty believes you. I asked too much. You don't have to take it to heart." Gu Jinyu said gently, "Mama, you're doing this for Aunt's sake." "I understand." Chimama sighed again. "Her Majesty has already checked. The Imperial Jade Seal was broken long ago, and it was His Highness the Seventh Prince who broke it. His Majesty took his anger out on you because he believed those rumors and thought that someone else invented the bellows. The most important thing now is to prove that you're the true owner. Unfortunately, Her Majesty has no other way." These words reminded Gu Jinyu that she could no longer use the bellows to turn the tables, but she could use other things. She thought of what she saw in Jade Water Alley that day. Gu Jinyu narrowed her eyes. "Mama, it's been too long since the bellows incident. I didn't keep an eye on it back then and left behind a more conclusive blueprint. I probably can't explain it clearly, but that's not all I have." Chimama was shocked. You have other things? Then why didn't you take them out earlier?" Gu Jinyu smiled. "I only thought of it these few days. I didn't give up on myself after being locked up here. Instead, I calmed myself down and asked what else I could do for the court. Then, I remembered something I accidentally made in the manor." "What is it?" Chimama asked excitedly. "Glutinous rice mortar." Gu Jinyu had actually not witnessed its effects with her own eyes, but she could not care less now. She could only take a gamble. The mortar made with glutinous rice soup is extremely strong and is the best building material. If Mama doesn't believe me, you can go back to the palace and try. Aunt dotes on me, so I should repay Aunt well. I'm willing to give this credit to His Highness the Fifth Prince." Chimama hurried back to the palace and told Consort Shu about the glutinous rice mortar, especially emphasizing that this credit could be given to His Highness the Fifth Prince. However, Consort Shu was very cautious. She was not in a hurry to ask for credit from the emperor. Instead, she first called for the eunuchs to bring over a bucket of ordinary mortar. She also asked the small kitchen to mix a bucket of glutinous rice mortar according to Gu Jinyu's method. After the two types of mortar solidified, Consort Shu asked someone to hit it with a hammer. Ordinary mortar shattered with a single hit, but glutinous rice mortar was as hard as a rock. Consort Shu smiled in surprise. "Where's His Highness the Fifth Prince? Quick! Hurry and call him back for this consort. I want to see the Emperor." On the other side, little Jing Kong finished his day's homework at the Imperial College and arrived at the agreed location with his friends. Last time, Qin Chuyu promised to bring his two friends to visit the palace. After establishing a relationship with the Crown Princess's sister-in-law, the Crown Princess's sister-in-law finally agreed to let him bring his friends into the palace. If it were an adult, they would be curious about how he could enter the palace, but children would not. Su Konji informed the servant who came to pick him up. The servant knew of Qin Chuyu's identity and did not dare to disagree with the prince's invitation. Little Jing Kong went to the medical center and told Gu Jiao that he was going out to play and would take the Su family's carriage back later. Gu Jiao had no objections. Su Konji and Qin Chuyu also often came to the medical center to play. The three of them happily got into Qin Chuyu's carriage. Digression: Jiao Jiao's #1 fan, Little Jing Kong, is here. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is more complete and updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found online here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_826/113552217. HTML Genius memorized the website address in a second. www.zhbqg.com Bikuj mobile reading website, m. zhbqg.com. Chapter 213. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. Please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more frequently. Millions of novels are free to read. There are all kinds of novels that you can't find online. Qin Chuyu brought his friends into the palace with the permission of the Crown Princess sister-in-law. She had already arranged everything for him and wouldn't expose his identity. There were 3 main doors in the palace. The middle door was the largest and tallest one. Usually, only the Empress Dowager, and the Crown Prince were allowed to enter through the middle door. The officials went to court through the side doors. Qin Chuyu was a prince and the Crown Prince's younger brother, so he could also go through the middle door. Su Tsong was 7 years younger than Qin Chuyu. He had never been to the palace, but he knew that his father went to court through the side door every day. When he entered through the middle door, he instantly felt that he could brag to his father when he went back. Little Jing Kong didn't understand this. He only felt that the palace was so big. Even the door was so big. It was like a giant monster with its mouth wide open. They walked into the monster's stomach. It was quite refreshing. The carriage drove all the way in and stopped outside the East Palace. The East Palace was the Crown Prince's bedroom. Normal princes weren't allowed to live in the East Palace, but Qin Chuyu was young. He could live wherever he wanted. The emperor didn't restrict him too much. Qin Chuyu jumped off the carriage first, followed by his 2 friends. Before picking up his friends, Qin Chuyu had already planned this trip with the help of the Crown Princess sister-in-law. They couldn't go to the Empress Dowager's bedroom, but they could play in the East Palace. Then, they could play hide-and-seek in the Imperial Garden and go boating in the Imperial Liquid Pond. The servants had also been instructed not to come out and be an eyesore. Qin Chuyu took the lead and walked on the small path in the East Palace. He said proudly, "What do you think? Ahem. The palace is very big, right? This is the East Palace, where the Crown Prince lives. However, the smartest, cutest, and smartest 7th Prince of the Zhao Nation also lives here. That's me, Qin Chuyu." Not far away, the servant who was sweeping the floor twitched his mouth. "7th Prince, you weren't so arrogant. Who taught you that? Achoo!" Little Jing Kong sneezed. The Eastern Palace was very big. There was a main hall, 2 side halls, and several small courtyards. One of the small courtyards was Qin Chuyu's personal space. The Crown Princess had people make a swing, a rock garden, and a wooden horse for him. Qin Chuyu was already tired of playing with them. Su Kanji also had these at home, and there were even more varieties than Chin Chuyu. The truth was that in order to prevent the princes from being distracted, there were actually fewer toys in the palace than there were among the commoners. Su Kanji was not too envious. Little Jing Kong was even less envious. The swing that his master made for him in the temple would swing from one end of the mountain to the other. There was also climbing. He and Jiao Jiao had climbed real mountains. What was so good about climbing a small fake mountain? Let's build a house, Little Jing Kong said. Recently, Little Jing Kong was obsessed with architecture. Su Kanji nodded. Although he was 7 years old, he also wanted to play with mud. Chin Chuyu, who actually wanted to dig a fake mountain cave with his friends, said, "All right." Chin Chuyu went to the small woodshed to get 3 buckets and 3 small shovels. He happily went to dig mud. The palace servants' mouths twitched. Was it really appropriate for a prince to dig mud with others? "Why don't we report this to the empress? This is too ridiculous," a young palace maid said. The young eunuch thought about it. The crown princess did not want them to interfere with the 7th prince, but digging mud was indeed too ridiculous. If the empress blamed them, the crown princess would be fine, but they, as servants, would be in trouble. With this thought, the young eunuch decided to go to Cunning Palace. After Consort Shu returned to the palace from the Ministry of Justice's prison, she immediately called a few eunuchs and had them boil a pot of glutinous rice soup according to Gu Jinyu's method. She also brought a bag of mortar that was usually used to build walls. After mixing the two evenly, Consort Shu ordered people to bring a few green bricks and paste them with glutinous rice mortar. To compare the effect, Consort Shu also had people use normal mortar to paste a few green bricks. "When it dries, use a hammer to test it," Consort Shu said to the palace servants. "Yes." The 2 young eunuchs responded and quickly brought over iron hammers. After the mortar in the green bricks dried, they used the hammers to fiercely smash the bricks. The result was that the glutinous rice mortar was more durable than normal mortar. No one knew if it had more long-term effects, but in terms of toughness, the glutinous rice mortar was far better than normal mortar. Consort Shu was not a lady of the boudoir. She had been in the palace for so many years. How could she not know how much benefit this mortar would bring to the Zhao kingdom? Not to mention the distant past, just the recent unrest at the border was caused by the heavy rain on the border walls. Many parts of the walls had collapsed. The Zhao kingdom's walls were too weak. They had to be rebuilt every few years. Even so, they were still prone to collapse. The 2 Jue were like tigers watching their prey and had disguised themselves as mounted bandits to invade. In the long run, the border would fall into greater danger. The Zhao kingdom was not a strong military power. The battle with the Chen kingdom a few years ago had greatly damaged the Zhao kingdom's strength. If they fought again, the price would be disastrous. The court was currently discussing how to quickly repair the walls. If they had this special mortar, then wouldn't they not have to worry about the walls collapsing? This contribution would not be less than the bellows. Consort Shu's heart faintly burned with excitement. She could not wait. Where is His Highness the 5th Prince? Has he not found him yet? Where did he go? A eunuch said, "His Highness the 5th Prince left the palace. He said he had an appointment with a friend to recite poetry. He will probably return at night. Right now, Eunuch Li has already gone out to find His Highness the 5th Prince. I just don't know. I don't know if he can find him." His Highness the 5th Prince was the master. He could not report his whereabouts to the servants. Eunuch Li could only follow His Highness the 5th Prince's usual route and try his luck. Consort Shu thought about it. It was the same whether he was present or not. It was fine as long as he did it. "Where is His Majesty?" Consort Shu asked. The eunuch said, "In the supreme liquid pool." Consort Shu touched the tassels on her hairbun. "Oh, why didn't His Majesty go to the Empress Place today?" The eunuch smiled. Perhaps he was tired of staying in the Empress Palace and came out to get some fresh air. His Majesty can only stay at Nyongyong's place. The most favored concubine in the harem was Consort Shu. She had never lost favor since she entered the palace. It was only after His Majesty returned from Jiangnan that he became obsessed with alchemy and would not be close to women for a short period of time. In the past, His Majesty would rest in her palace for 5 or 6 days every month. Consort Shu heard this and smiled faintly. Okay, let's go. Yes. The eunuch gave a meaningful look to the servant and took a bucket of glutinous rice mortar to the supreme liquid pool. The weather was fine. When Consort Shu arrived at the pavilion of the supreme liquid pool, the other concubines also came. There was nothing unexpected. His Majesty had not come to the harem for so long. Who would not suddenly appear like a fly eyeing the crack in an egg? What surprised Consort Shu was that the Empress and noble Consort Zhuang were also there. These two people did not need to compete for favor in the harem. What's more, His Majesty had been to the Empress' cunning palace for the past few days. Why would she come out at this time to compete with the other concubines? Consort Shu was not here to compete for favor today, so she did not mind there being more people. She stepped forward and saluted the Emperor and Empress Xiao. Your Majesty, Empress. Empress Xiao seemed to be in a good mood and smiled at her. The Emperor raised his hand. Rise. Consort Shu and noble Consort Zhuang saluted. Noble Consort Zhuang stood up and slightly returned the salute. After that, Consort Yu and the other concubines all saluted Consort Shu. Consort Yu automatically gave up her seat, and Eunuch Wei went to bring another chair for Consort Yu. Consort Shu was not in a hurry to sit down. Instead, she stood in front of the Emperor and said with a smile, Your Majesty, this concubine has something to offer Your Majesty. Oh. The Emperor stopped drinking his tea. Consort Shu asked the eunuch to bring a few separated and glued green bricks. Everyone looked at these green bricks and could not help but reveal a surprised expression. The Emperor was baffled. Consort Shu wants to offer me bricks? Consort Shu covered her face with a handkerchief and laughed. It's not bricks, it's the mortar in the bricks. She narrated how the fifth prince came up with the idea of using glutinous rice to make mortar last night. After that, she stood in place with a smile, waiting for the Emperor's praise. However, the Emperor did not. The pavilion suddenly fell into a strange silence. Everyone, including Empress Xiao and the other concubines, looked at her with a different expression. Consort Shu did not understand what had happened. She looked at Empress Xiao, noble Consort Zhuang and the others. What's wrong? Empress Xiao frowned slightly. Noble Consort Zhuang covered her face with a handkerchief and laughed. Consort Shu looked at noble Consort Zhuang with a serious expression. Noble Consort, what are you laughing at? Noble Consort Zhuang could not help but laugh. She pointed to a bucket at Consort Yu's feet and said, Are you talking about this mortar? Consort Shu was startled. That color was obviously glutinous rice mortar. How could this be? She looked back at the eunuch she brought. Yes, the bucket of mortar was in his hands. Then, where did this bucket of mortar come from? As soon as this thought flashed through her mind, she heard a small sound. She turned her head and found that on the bridge of the imperial liquid pool, 3 little guys were squatting on the wooden bridge and making mortar. The 3 of them were having fun, not knowing that they were being watched by the Emperor and the other concubines. The cause of the incident was when the eunuch of the Eastern Palace secretly reported to Empress Xiao that Qin Chuyu was playing with mud. Empress Xiao almost fainted when she heard that her precious son was squatting on the ground and rubbing mud like a wild child in the countryside. She angrily went to find her son, but unexpectedly, the 3 of them were no longer in the Eastern Palace. After searching for a long time, she finally found him near the Qinjing Hall. At that time, Qin Chuyu and his friends were carrying small buckets to paste the Emperor's wall. Empress Xiao looked at the messy coiling dragon stone wall of the Qinjing Hall and almost collapsed on the spot. What are you doing? Little Jing Kong was using a small brush to paste the wall. He turned around and said to her, The wall is cracked. Paste it. Gu Jiao always repaired the roofs and walls for the neighbors, so little Jing Kong had long been itching to do it. But there was no wall to paste at home. There were many broken walls here, so he wanted to paste it. Empress Xiao, isn't that cracked? It's a pattern. It's a historical relic. It was passed down by the Emperor Taizu, and it was said that it blocked a landslide for him. So it was also called the Coiling Dragon Stone. What was even more tragic was that they not only pasted the Coiling Dragon Stone wall, but also the Emperor's Wind Lookout wall. Along the way, the three of them pasted the walls whenever they saw them. Empress Xiao didn't faint on the spot because of little Jing Kong's good looks. Empress Xiao didn't have time to teach her son and his little playmates a lesson. She hurriedly asked someone to dig out the mortar on the Coiling Dragon Stone. The mortar was actually quite easy to dig out. It could be pried off with a dagger or a shovel. However, for some reason, the mortar this time couldn't be pried off no matter what. Empress Xiao realized that her son had made a big mistake, so she thought about finding someone to take the blame for him later. Unexpectedly, the Emperor came. The three of them were caught red-handed. Empress Xiao was scared to death. Unexpectedly, the Emperor didn't punish the three children. Of course, the Emperor didn't want to punish the little miracle-working doctor's younger brother. Although he looked at the pasted Coiling Dragon Stone, his Dragon Balls were also very painful. But soon, he found that there was something wrong with the mortar. Strictly speaking, it wasn't simple. How could there be such a strong mortar? Little Qi didn't have the brain, so the Emperor skipped over Qin Chuyu and asked little Jing Kong and Su Yongyang, the youngest son of the Minister of War, "Where did you get the mortar?" Little Jing Kong tilted his head and said, "We made it ourselves." The Emperor was quite surprised. "You know how to make this?" Little Jing Kong said seriously, "Jiao Jiao always makes it. I've learned it." The Emperor looked at little Jing Kong and then looked at the pasted Coiling Dragon Stone. Suddenly, he laughed like a fool. Empress Xiao seriously suspected that he had gone crazy. After that, it was now. The three little kids ran out of mortar, so they came here to make new ones. Qin Chuyu asked the Imperial Kitchen for the glutinous rice soup. They mixed it into the mortar, which was more or less the same as what Concubine Shu said. The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated more quickly. Millions of novels will be read for free. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found on the internet here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/113526111. HTML Genius remembered the website address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Gu mobile reading website, zhbqg.com. Chapter 214. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel was also updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels were read for free. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found online here. Consort Shu had not expected this outcome. Didn't Gu Jinyu say that she had invented it? How could a 4-year-old child know how to do it? Noble Consort Zhuang didn't mind watching the fun and said, "Noble Consort Shu, could it be that Xiaowu secretly learned other people's skills and then claimed credit as her own?" Imperial Concubine Shu felt guilty and her face turned red. What is Imperial Concubine saying? How could little Five do such a thing? Noble Consort Zhuang smiled faintly. Could it be that they secretly learned from Xiaowu? Empress Xiao said seriously, "Be careful with your words, Imperial Concubine. I heard it just now. That child said that his family already knew how to do it." Imperial Concubine Shu braced herself and said, Little Fifth also knows how to do it." Noble Consort Zhuang said, "That's not what you said just now. Didn't you say that Xiaowu just thought of it yesterday?" Imperial Concubine Shu had indeed mentioned that the fifth prince had only mentioned this method to her last night. Noble Consort Zhuang said again, "Could it be that Xiaowu mentioned to little Qi that little Qi taught the child, but the child lied and said that his family taught him?" Empress Xiao said seriously, "Last night, little Qi came back from the Imperial College and stayed with me. His Majesty was also there." After that, His Majesty sent little Qi to the East Palace. Imperial Consort, tell me, how will little Qi meet Xiao Wu? Why would Xiao Wu tell little Qi about this? There was such a big age gap between the two of them, and they weren't very close. The fifth prince would never tell Qin Chuyu about this. Qin Chuyu was a child. What did he know? Noble consort Zhuang bowed. Chen Qieme spoke. Noble consort Zhuang wasn't speaking for consort Shu, and Empress Xiao also understood. The emperor looked at consort Shu with a complicated expression. To be honest, the emperor doted on imperial concubine Shu very much. There were always new people coming and going in the palace, but imperial concubine Shu was always the most favored one. There was no other reason. Imperial concubine Shu was charming and beautiful. She also knew how to coax people. She was a rare flower that understood words very well. However, what happened today had crossed the emperor's bottom line. The emperor was already furious that Gu Jinyu had falsely claimed credit but had no evidence. He was most annoyed by people who stole credit. Of course, the emperor was a person who relied on evidence. The emperor said, "Do you have evidence to prove when Xiao Wu first made this kind of mortar?" Xu Fei was speechless. The emperor continued, "He can't have imagined it out of thin air. You have to do it before you believe it, right?" Concubine Shu was completely speechless. The emperor called Eunuch Wei over. "Go and ask that child. When was the first time his family made this?" "Yes." Eunuch Wei walked away with small, quick steps. After a while, he turned back and said to the emperor, "Reporting to your majesty, he said that many of their neighbors' walls were made of this kind of mortar paste. They had it since last month." The emperor gave Eunuch Wei a meaningful glance. Eunuch Wei understood and turned around to call over a few palace experts, telling them to make a trip to Jadewater Alley. The imperial concubines had originally come to see the emperor, but now they were here to see Imperial Concubine Shu. Imperial Concubine Shu had been in the palace for many years, but she had never been so embarrassed. "Gu Jinyu, Gu Jinyu, you really tricked me." Not long after, the palace experts returned to the palace. One of them said to the emperor, "Reporting to your majesty, there is indeed the same kind of mortar." This time, the evidence was conclusive. The child's family made the mortar first. Then the question was, how did the fifth prince know about the mortar? Did he think of it himself, or did he steal it from someone else? Empress Xiao couldn't help but ask, "Concubine Shu, what exactly is going on?" Concubine Shu was extremely regretful. If she had known earlier, she wouldn't have fallen for Gu Jinyu's trick and come to claim this credit. Now, how could she cover up her lie? It would have been fine if the fifth prince hadn't been involved, but he had. Noble consort Zhuang smiled faintly. "Why don't we call the fifth prince over and ask him?" No. She hadn't finished discussing with Xiao Wu yet. If she called Xiao Wu over at this juncture, wouldn't she be exposed on the spot? But what concubine Shu was afraid of happened. Imperial father? Imperial mother? Why are you here? The fifth prince had returned to the palace and was rushing over with large strides. "Imperial mother, I heard that you were looking for me for an urgent matter." He walked into the pavilion and saw Empress Xiao and the others seated. He cupped his hands and greeted them one by one. "Imperial mother, you look terrible." The fifth prince looked at concubine Shu strangely. Everyone was sitting, but concubine Shu was standing in the middle of the pavilion, looking like she was being interrogated. The fifth prince frowned. What happened? Concubine Shu gave him a look. Empress Xiao pointed to a bucket of mortar and asked, "Xiao Wu, do you recognize this?" Concubine Shu desperately gave him a look. The fifth prince didn't see it. He looked at the mortar and asked with disgust, "What is this dirty thing?" How could everyone not understand what he meant when he said it was dirty? It turned out that he didn't even recognize mortar. Noble consort Zhuang covered her face and laughed. "Xiao Wu, concubine Shu said that you made this thing?" The fifth prince was disgusted. "Why would I make such a dirty thing?" Noble consort Zhuang burst into laughter. The rest of the concubines also covered their mouths with their handkerchiefs. Empress Xiao put on the airs of the mother of the country and didn't laugh at all. Concubine Shu even wanted to die. What happened to the connection between mother and son? Can't there be a bit of tacit understanding? You can leave first, the emperor said to the fifth prince. This matter had nothing to do with him, so the emperor wouldn't vent his anger on him for the time being. The fifth prince didn't understand, but the emperor had given the order, so he could only leave silently. The emperor's cold gaze fell on concubine Shu's face. What the hell is going on? Why don't you tell the truth? There were witnesses and material evidence. It was impossible for concubine Shu to exonerate herself. After entering the palace for so many years, this was the first time she had been slapped in the face in public, and one of them was her son. Concubine Shu felt aggrieved and said with red eyes, "Your Majesty, I didn't do it on purpose. I did it for a reason." Concubine Shu told him about her meeting Gu Jinyu in prison. Of course, she didn't say that Gu Jinyu wanted to give her credit. Instead, she said, "The princess knew that she had angered your Majesty and was afraid that your Majesty wouldn't believe her method, so she made me lie that it was little Five who thought of it. She said that she hoped to serve your Majesty again. How would I know that she stole someone else's method? Gu Jinyu again. She plagiarized the little miracle doctor's things again. This was great." He was worried that he couldn't find evidence for the bellows, but Mortar delivered the evidence to his door. The emperor looked at concubine Shu. So, concubine Shu was also deceived. From the beginning to the end, she was the only one who committed the crime of deceiving the emperor? What could concubine Shu do? Admit that she almost deceived the emperor? In order to protect herself, concubine Shu had to admit that Gu Jinyu deceived the emperor. Concubine Shu bit her lip and knelt down in front of everyone. She kowtowed and said, "Your Majesty, my niece committed a grave mistake. Your Majesty, please punish her." The emperor said, "Princess Hui stole someone else's work and falsely claimed credit for it. She deceived the emperor and committed treason. On account of concubine Shu's pleading for her, I will strip her of her position as princess and revoke her title." Concubine Shu was stunned. This was on account of her? She couldn't even be a princess anymore. The crime of deceiving the emperor was actually very difficult to convict strictly. For example, Qin Chuyu would always lie that he didn't secretly eat candy. The third prince would lie that he had done his homework. These were all deceiving the emperor, but usually, they wouldn't be convicted. They would only be punished if there were serious consequences. The mortar incident clearly didn't cause serious consequences. The emperor had still stripped her of her title and position as princess because he wanted to use this as an excuse to make a fuss. Everyone couldn't help but think of the explosion at the Ministry of Works and the rumor that the bellows had not been invented by Gu Jinyu. If it was because of the bellows, then it made sense. Concubine Shu, oh concubine Shu, so your niece wasn't as good as you said. She didn't know anything and stole someone else's work. She even modified it on her own and caused a disaster. If you didn't punish your niece, who would you punish? The concubines all looked at concubine Shu with a different expression. This woman, who was so proud of her success, finally fell. Concubine Shu was fined a year's salary by the emperor and grounded for a month. Concubine Shu's face turned green. What was a slap in the face? This was it. The entire harem saw her as a joke. From now on, this black history of hers could not be erased. The emperor frowned and glanced at her. What? You're still not leaving? Are you not satisfied with my punishment? Your Majesty doesn't dare. Your Majesty will leave. Concubine Shu stood up awkwardly and bowed to the emperor. She staggered away with the help of the palace maids. She had only taken a few steps when the emperor suddenly called out to her. Concubine Shu. Concubine Shu was overjoyed. She turned her head back with tears in her eyes, hoping that the emperor would comfort her. After all, she had also been implicated. Unexpectedly, the emperor only said coldly, "Have Xiao Wu come to the imperial study. I want to test him on his homework." Concubine Shu immediately froze. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated even faster. Millions of novels will be read for free. All the novels that can't be found online will be available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_826/1135233964. HTML Genius will remember this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Gu mobile reading website, m. zhbqg.com. Chapter 215. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are available here. What she feared had come true. It was not enough to describe Consort Shu's current mood. She did not expect the Emperor to test the fifth prince's homework at this time. The Emperor was very busy every day and did not have much time to test the prince's homework. The eldest prince and the crown prince were the most concerned about it. One was his eldest son, the other was his legitimate son. For someone like the fifth prince, who was not the legitimate heir or not, the Emperor would at most check his essays. Every time, with Gu Jinyu's help, the fifth prince's essays would be done very well. The Emperor would occasionally call the fifth prince over and ask him questions about his essays. Gu Jinyu had taught the fifth prince these in advance. Although the fifth prince was not good in class, he was very talented in cheating. Gu Jinyu only needed to say that the Emperor might test him on this later. If he answered this way, he would remember it. So, the fifth prince had never been exposed after asking Gu Jinyu to cheat for so many years. Consort Shu's heart was trembling. "Your Majesty," she tried to stop all this, but the Emperor was determined. On the other side, the three little kids had finished making the mortar and were carrying the small buckets to paste the wall. The Emperor had no more fun watching them. He got up and returned to the imperial study. Empress Xiao, noble consort Zhuang, and the others got up to send him off. The Emperor went to the imperial study. The fifth prince was also called over. He did not understand what had happened for the time being. He only felt that the palace servants' expressions were strange, and the Emperor's expression was even stranger. "Father." He entered the imperial study and bowed. At this time, the three little kids had already carried the small buckets and were huffing and puffing outside the imperial study to paste the wall. Eunuch Wei was really worried that the little kids would paste the Emperor into the wall. He hurriedly asked someone to bring the bricks over. Not the wall, but the bricks were not bad. The few of them squatted down and used small brushes to slowly paste the bricks. Little Jing Kong was the most serious, but because he was too young, he did not control his strength well enough, so he was the worst at it. The second best was Su Konji. He was not very good at it. Qin Chuyu was the only one who was truly good at hiding behind walls. At first, Qin Chuyu played along with his two friends, but after a while, he realized that he was the best at pasting and gradually found joy in pasting walls. "I can be a painter in the future," Qin Chuyu said proudly. Little Jing Kong agreed wholeheartedly, "That's right, you're the best." Su Konji also nodded in agreement. Eunuch Wei's body trembled, and the horsetail whisk in his hand fell out of fright. "Little ancestor, you're a prince. Is your dream to be a painter? Can't you be a little more mature?" In the royal study, the fifth prince's shock was no less than Eunuch Wei's. However, his shock did not come from his brother, who was going to be a tile painter, but from the Emperor's sole interrogation. The Emperor recited a passage from Mencius. "It is not that the city walls are not high, the pond is not deep, the military revolution is not firm, the rice grains are not plentiful, the land is not as good as the people. What's behind it?" The fifth prince said, It's. Little Jing Kong shook his head and pasted bricks. As the saying goes, the people of the country don't use the boundary of the border, the country doesn't use the dangers of the mountains and rivers, the world doesn't use the advantages of the military revolution. A just cause enjoys much support, while an unjust cause enjoys little support. With little support, one's relatives will support him. With much support, the world will follow. With the world's support, one's relatives will support him. Therefore, if a gentleman does not fight, he will definitely win. The 4-year-old's voice was crisp and a little childish. The entire royal study fell silent. The emperor glared at the 5th prince and said, "It's easy for a man to speak." The 5th prince couldn't answer. Little Jing Kong said, "You can't blame me." The emperor said, "I'm only concerned about the country." Little Jing Kong said, "You can't listen to me wholeheartedly." He wasn't competing with the 5th prince for an answer. He just heard it and said it out loud. Just like when he listened to music, he would hum the next line when he heard the first line. That was all. The emperor was furious. He pointed outside the window and said, "Listen, listen, listen. You're worse than a 4-year-old. Qin Chuyu asked Little Jing Kong strangely, "What were you reciting just now?" Little Jing Kong spread his hands. "I don't know. I heard it from the big brothers in the Imperial College." The 4 books and 5 classics were compulsory for the imperial examinations. Students in the Imperial College often recited them, so Little Jing Kong memorized it after hearing it a lot. Qin Chuyu said, "Why can't I remember it?" The emperor gave the 5th prince a few more arithmetic problems, but the 5th prince didn't know any of them. The emperor was furious. "Aren't these the problems you did before? You just changed the numbers." The 5th prince trembled in fear and didn't even dare to breathe loudly. It was basically confirmed that the 5th prince had faked his knowledge. If it wasn't for imperial concubine Shu making such a fuss, the emperor would not have suspected the 5th prince. If he dared to take credit for the 5th prince, then was his previous knowledge also adulterated? "Who did your homework in the past?" the emperor asked in a low voice. At first, the 5th prince wanted to clench his teeth, but he couldn't withstand his father's pressure. He stammered, "Cousin." The emperor was furious. It was Gu Jinyu again. The emperor was so angry that he laughed. He had been wondering where Gu Jinyu had learned her ability to claim credit for herself at the drop of a hat. Now, it seemed that she had been influenced by others since she was young. Her talents had been taken away by others, so she had taken other people's things. What was this called? A crooked stick will have a crooked shadow. The emperor suddenly felt terrible about the good things that concubine Shu had. But his son was his biological son, so he couldn't really leave him alone. After the 3rd prince was conferred the title of Rui Wang, the eldest prince was also conferred the title of Prince Ning. The 4th prince and the 5th prince weren't young anymore. There were officials in the court who wrote that it was time for them to be conferred the title of prince. Just this morning, he had already drafted the titles for his 2 sons. But now, the emperor felt that it wasn't enough. Actually, the 4th prince's knowledge wasn't fake. The emperor was just hurt by the 5th prince, so he suddenly became suspicious of the 4th prince. Should he test the 4th prince's knowledge? Or even if he passed the test, should he test his character? The emperor thought about it 1,000 times, but in the end, he only said one thing: the matter of conferring the title of prince could be discussed later. Hence, the 4th prince, who didn't do anything, was implicated and had no chance of being conferred the title of prince. The 4th prince was really annoyed. Who did he offend? Where could he go to reason with him? Little Jing Kong spent a beautiful afternoon in the palace. In order not to expose his identity, Qin Chuyu didn't say that he was staying in the palace. He only said that he would go back with his father later. A child wouldn't be so suspicious. Then, see you tomorrow. Little Jing Kong said goodbye to Qin Chuyu, got into the Su family's carriage with Su Tangtang, and left the palace. When the Su family's carriage sent Little Jing Kong back to the medical center, it was already a little late. There weren't many patients in the medical center today, so Gu Jiao waited for Little Jing Kong in the lobby. Little Jing Kong was actually very tired. Su Tangtang had already fallen asleep on the bed. Little Jing Kong's eyelids were fighting, but he forced himself not to fall asleep. The carriage arrived at the medical center. Gu Jiao would take a look at every carriage that stopped in front of the medical center. This time was no exception. She saw that it was the Su family's carriage, so she got up and walked out. Little Jing Kong didn't jump down, so she could guess what was going on. She got into the carriage and held little Jing Kong in her arms. Little Jing Kong was pecking at the rice like a jiao jiao. As he pecked, he felt that his body was light. He looked at Gu Jiao in a daze and called out softly, "Jiao Jiao?" "Yes, it's me." Gu Jiao hugged him with one hand and held the back of his head with the other. Then, she carried him out of the carriage. "Be careful." The coachman brought over a footstool. "Thank you." Gu Jiao thanked him and carried little Jing Kong back to the medical center. Little Jing Kong lay in Gu Jiao's arms. His little head rested on her shoulder and he fell asleep. Gu Jiao freed one hand to take the small basket. A slender, jade-like hand reached out. "Let me do it." He put Gu Jiao's small medicine box into the basket, then carried the small basket on his back. He reached out to carry little Jing Kong again. Little Jing Kong, however, seemed to have sensed something. He frowned and grabbed Gu Jiao's clothes tightly, refusing to let go. "It's okay. I'll carry him," Gu Jiao said to Xiao Lulang. Xiao Lulang said, "Okay." Gu Jiao asked strangely, "It's so late. Why are you here? The medical center isn't busy today." "I'm just passing by," Xiao Lulang said seriously. Gu Jiao said, "Oh. Is there anything else?" Xiao Lulang asked. "No. Let's go home," Gu Jiao said briskly. "Okay." Xiao Lulang responded, but soon felt that something was wrong. Home. Since when did he recognize that place as his home? Gu Jiao stepped out of the door and found that Xiao Lulang didn't follow her. She looked back at him and asked, "Aren't you going home?" Xiao Lulang opened his mouth and said, "I'm going home." Xiao Lulang walked out with his crutch. Gu Jiao waited for him to come over, then walked side by side with him to Clearwater Alley. The street was noisy, and people were coming and going. Xiao Lulang walked to the outside and blocked the pedestrians who might bump into him. As he walked, he silently looked at her beside him. When he first met her, she was just a silly girl. Now, she was slim and elegant. Her face was still the same, but it was as if she had changed into another person. He had said that he would leave. However, she didn't know when it started. Perhaps it started from the moment she insisted that he go to Tianxiang Academy, or perhaps it was from the moment she wanted to send him to the county examinations regardless of everything. Step by step, she had walked to this day. He couldn't do such a childish thing like asking for a gift again. He couldn't have a heart, he couldn't have a home, he couldn't have any more worries. Creak. Gu Jiao pushed open the door to the courtyard. Xiao Lulang said almost reflexively, "You're in the wrong place. This isn't our home." After saying this, he was stunned. Gu Jiao turned her head and smiled. "I know. I'm giving Master Zhao some cough medicine." Her smile was as clean as the snow at the peak of the heavenly mountain. Xiao Lulang was dazzled. The next day, the news of the emperor stripping Gu Jinyu of her title and position as princess spread through the streets and alleys. Everyone in the tea houses was discussing why Gu Jinyu had been severely punished by the emperor. "I heard that she broke the imperial jade seal. His Majesty punished her in a fit of anger." "That's not what I heard." "Then what is it? Do you know about the furnace accident at the Ministry of Works? That furnace was modified by her. It could only use 2 bellows, but she insisted on using 6. In the end, the furnace exploded. She modified it just because she said so. Didn't the officials at the Ministry of Works review it? So that's where the problem lies. She only provided the plan. It's up to the Ministry of Works whether to use it or not. The Ministry of Works Inspection Department is the main culprit. There's another reason why she was punished." All right. Don't keep us in suspense. Tell us." "She didn't invent the bellows. It was another girl. The old blacksmith rushed over from the county and exposed her on the spot." "Ah. There was such a thing. Otherwise, why would His Majesty punish her so severely? Isn't it because she committed the crime of deceiving the emperor? The noble daughter of a marquis actually falsely claiming someone else's credit. She's too shameless. Isn't that right? Shameless. This was a small tea house outside the capital. Even outside the city, the news had spread like wildfire. A well-built old man, who couldn't hide his dignity even though he was wearing plain clothes, frowned slightly. "Little brother, which marquis's daughter is this noble daughter of a marquis?" His voice was too dignified. The people who were in the middle of a heated discussion couldn't help but fall silent. They all looked towards him. His hair was already silver, but his figure was tall and sturdy. His appearance was dignified and his aura was strong. Not a single person present dared to underestimate him. It was a newborn calf that didn't fear the tiger that courageously said, "Marquis Ding, Anne's manor." The dignified old man sternly said, "Are you certain that you didn't make a mistake?" The young boy trembled in fear from his aura. No mistake. It's Ding and Marquis's manor. It's spread throughout the capital. If you don't believe me, go ask. Marquis Ding, Anne's daughter, invented the bellows and was conferred the title of Junju. She hadn't been free for a few days when the bellows had an accident. Many people were injured. The dignified old man's gaze turned cold. Digression. Can you guess who this old man is? The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found online are all here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_896/1134957886. HTML Genius will remember this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Gur mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 216. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet are all available here. The business of the medical center was only deserted for a day, but the next day, there were more people. Fortunately, the patients who were treated here earlier were discharged from the hospital one after another. Zhang Shi was still being treated. He was the most serious patient in the accident. Just a few days ago, he successfully passed the critical period. His current condition was good, and new improvements could be seen every day. His voice was also gradually recovering, and he could occasionally speak a few words in a hoarse voice. Gu Jiao already learned that his name was Zhang Shi, from Yuxin County. He was 21 years old this year, and his younger sister, Zhang Li, was 8 years old this year. There was a famine in their village. Their parents and family members starved to death, leaving only him and his sister. The two of them were bought by a merchant and sold many times. In fact, it was better for both of them to be separated, but Zhang Shi didn't want to be separated from his sister. It was also a coincidence that the two of them were sold to the capital. He worked as an illegal worker for the Ministry of Works. The salary for working as an illegal worker was not much, but it was barely enough to give his sister a bite to eat. From Zhang Shi's mouth, Gu Jiao also learned that there were many illegal workers like him. It was lucky to be able to work as an illegal worker for the imperial court. Some people were not bought by the corrupt officials of the imperial court, but were sold to some black-hearted small workshops, which was really miserable. This kind of illegal worker didn't have a household registration or travel permit in the capital. Although the imperial court paid for their treatment and gave them a little salary, they all had to leave the capital after they recovered. Gu Jiao gave Zhang Shi today's infusion. Zhang Li was not in the ward, so she went to the lobby to help. The little girl was already familiar with the people in the medical center. She understood that the people here would not hurt her, so she gradually let down her guard. When there were many people, she would help. Today, she was helping to pack the medicine. Her hands and feet were not very nimble, but she did it very carefully. While Gu Jiao was observing little Zhongli, Dr. Song suddenly came over and said with a smile, "The little girl works very hard. She can recognize a lot of medicinal materials. She is much better than me." While they were talking, a carriage came outside the door. The 4 accompanying bodyguards were all riding tall horses. With one look, one could tell that the identity of the person in the carriage was not ordinary. As expected, the curtain of the carriage was lifted, and a noble and beautiful young madam walked out. Who else could it be but Consort Rue Wang? Ever since Consort Rue Wang met Gu Jiao on the Stone Arch Bridge on the first day of the new year, she never appeared again. She got off the carriage with the help of 2 female officials. She waved her hand impatiently. "All right, don't help me. It's not like I don't have hands and feet." "But you must be careful," said Maid Su. Consort Rue Wang ignored her and walked into the hall. She saw Gu Jiao and smiled happily. "Miss Gu." Gu Jiao nodded slightly. Consort Rue Wang looked around and walked forward to hold Gu Jiao's hand. "Is it convenient for us to sit in your courtyard?" "Okay." Gu Jiao said to Dr. Song, "I'll leave this place to you." "Okay." Dr. Song responded and cupped his hands to Consort Rue Wang. The patients here did not know the identity of the other party, but he knew. Consort Rue Wang did not pay much attention to him and went to the courtyard with Gu Jiao. The 2 of them sat down. Gu Jiao poured her a cup of tea. Consort Rue Wang did not drink, but said, "I'm sorry that I haven't come to see you for so long. I only found out that I was pregnant when I came back from the palace that day. The mamas did not let me go out and kept me locked up for 2 months. The mamas also followed Consort Yu's instructions. The fetus had to wait for 3 months before it could be announced to the public and be allowed to go out." "Congratulations," Gu Jiao said. Consort Rue Wang's face flashed with a touch of shyness. "His Highness and I have been married for a few years. This is my first child. Can you help me take a look at the pulse?" Gu Jiao took her pulse. "The pulse is very stable." Consort Rue Wang revealed a rare innocent smile. The imperial physician also said so, but I was not at ease with what the imperial physician said. "I am only at ease with what you said." She thought of something and said, "By the way, I haven't had the chance to thank you for what happened last time. If you didn't let me prepare in advance, I wouldn't have been able to save those people who fell into the lake." Gu Jiao said, "I just told you. They were saved because you believed me. The credit is yours, so there's no need to thank me." Consort Rue Wang opened her mouth. "Ah, how was she supposed to respond to this?" Gu Jiao asked calmly, "You came here today just to take the pulse and thank me?" Consort Rue Wang smiled embarrassedly. "Actually, there's something else. I want to ask you to make a house call. I know I'm being too abrupt and should have told you earlier. However, I only came to the palace today to pay my respects to His Majesty and the Empress. I just happened to hear the news. I don't feel at ease with other people seeing you." Gu Jiao was like this. She was amenable to coaxing but not coercion. If Consort Rue Wang used her power to pressure her, she would have refused. However, Consort Rue Wang looked at her with a pair of doe-like eyes. She sighed and agreed. "You're the best." Consort Rue Wang brought Gu Jiao to her carriage. Gu Jiao's patient was an imperial concubine. This imperial concubine did not live in the palace. Instead, she lived in a nunnery near Puji Temple. She also had to cross the river. The cable bridge had been repaired. The only way for the carriage to pass was through the stone arch bridge. The carriage stopped outside the nunnery. The 2 got off the carriage. Consort Rue Wang had the maid wait outside while she brought Gu Jiao into the nunnery. This nunnery was not big and there were not many nuns. They only saw 2 nuns in total. "Is the imperial concubine here?" Consort Rue Wang asked. "Yes. Princess, This way, please. A young nun brought Consort Rue Wang and Gu Jiao to a meditation room in the backyard. There was a suppressed cough coming from the meditation room. Consort Rue Wang's heart tightened. She lifted her skirt and walked over. Imperial concubine. Are you all right? In front of the bed, an old mama bowed to Consort Rue Wang. Princess. Consort Rue Wang sat down by the bed and held the coughing person's skinny hand. How did you get so sick? Cough, cough. What are you doing here? I'm fine. It's an old illness. Cough, cough. She coughed violently. Gu Jiao walked in with a small basket on her back. Her gaze fell on the other party. It was an old woman who was cultivating with hair. She was about the same age as her grandaunt. Her elegant face showed her beauty when she was young. This is... The other party looked at Gu Jiao. Imperial concubine, this is my friend. Her surname is Gu, and she's very skilled in medicine. She's here to treat you, Consort Rue Wang said and looked at Gu Jiao. Miss Gu, this is Consort Jing. Gu Jiao nodded. She did not have the habit of bowing to others. Consort Jing was a nun, so she did not care about this. She covered her face and coughed twice. Then, she said to Gu Jiao, since you're Chanqian's friend, you don't have to be so formal. I'm not an imperial concubine anymore. You can just call me Abbess Jing N. Gu Jiao took the old concubine's pulse and checked her body. Abbess, did you have asthma before? Grand concubine Jing was quite surprised that such a young girl could diagnose her asthma so quickly. But at her age, she wouldn't be surprised by such a thing. She said, I had it before. It's an old illness, and it's the worst in spring. Can it be cured? Consort Rue Wang looked at Gu Jiao. It's hard to cure, but it can be controlled. Gu Jiao opened the medicine box and took out some asthma medicine and spray for the old concubine. She told her how to use them and some taboos in daily life. The old concubine thanked Gu Jiao. Consort Rue Wang and the old concubine talked for a while, and only left reluctantly when the old concubine felt sleepy. After getting into the carriage, Consort Rue Wang sighed. The old concubine is too pitiful. What's more, the old concubine was admired by the emperor. The emperor's birth mother came from a humble background. She was only a palace maid and had no right to raise a prince. The emperor was adopted by the old concubine as soon as he was born. At that time, the old concubine was only concubine Jing. She was promoted to Consort Jing after giving birth to a little princess a few years later. Consort Jing was a gentle and magnanimous woman. She never fought for favor in the imperial harem, nor did she stir up trouble. Perhaps it was because of her temperament that Empress Dowager Zhuang liked her. She gave up so many princes and made her adopted son the emperor instead. However, she did make a sacrifice. Since the emperor was adopted by her, he was her son. When the emperor ascended the throne, she should be made Empress Dowager as well. But how could Empress Dowager Zhuang allow a second Empress Dowager to appear in the palace? That was why Consort Jing missed the late emperor and was willing to cultivate with her hair on, chanting scriptures for the late emperor every day. However, there's another saying among the people. Consort Rue Wang didn't treat Gu Jiao as an outsider. She didn't have any sisters of her own, and Gu Jiao was the first. She said, the old concubine has a sweetheart. She didn't want to be Empress Dowager and asked to be a nun. She hadn't even said this to her sister, Du Xiaoyun. Of course, the main reason was that Du Xiaoyun was a blabbermouth. Moreover, she was a blabbermouth that was biased toward the crown princess. Digression, her sweetheart couldn't be, I won't say. The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg com/89642-8264826/113492965. HTML Genius memorized the website's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikuj mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 217. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet are available here. Before consort Rui Wang got married, she also had many friends. However, after she got married, they became estranged. After she became the princess, those people no longer treated her as an ordinary friend. Miss Gu was so nice. They didn't treat her with fear and alienation just because she was the princess. In fact, she didn't understand how Gu Jiao did it. It seemed that she was always calm and nothing could make her have a big reaction. It was comfortable to get along with such a person. Consort Rui Wang sent the patient back to the medical center and paid the consultation fee before leaving. In the afternoon, the medical center received another visit. It was a patient who had been treated here before. He had been stitched up and it was time to remove the stitches. Dr. Song and the others were busy. Gu Jiao asked for the address and got on the medical center's carriage to go there. The patient's waist and abdomen were cut by the fragments of the furnace. He had more than 20 stitches. The initial recovery was good. However, he accidentally fell down when he got out of bed to go to the toilet and tore another part of the wound. This time, the recovery was good. Gu Jiao removed the stitches for him. "Do I need to take any medicine or apply any medicine?" the patient asked. Gu Jiao shook her head. "No, it's fine. The diet is light." The patient thanked her excitedly. "Thank you, Miss Gu." This patient was a regular craftsman invited by the Ministry of Works. He was a local in the capital. After he recovered, he could return to the Ministry of Works. Gu Jiao thought of Zhang Shi and little Zhang Li who were homeless in the medical center. However, she didn't think for too long. Gu Jiao got on the carriage. Xiao Sanzi drove the carriage and suddenly said, "Miss Gu, it's so lively over there." Gu Jiao was a very cold person, but she also liked to be lively. This was a very contradictory trait. She lifted the curtain and took a look. She seemed to understand why it was so lively. "It's the Qing Feng gang." "Ah, is that the Cool Breeze gang?" Although Xiao Sanzi had heard of it many times, he had never been inside, so he was a little expectant. The Cool Breeze restaurant was one of the most elegant restaurants in the capital. It had all kinds of food, drink, and entertainment. It also often opened some very novel gambling games. "Let's go take a look," Gu Jiao said. Xiao Sanzi was overjoyed. "Okay." The two went to the Cool Breeze Inn. The reason why it was so lively today was because of Xiao Lulang. It turned out that the Cool Breeze gang had set up a new gambling house. This time, they didn't bet on who was first or second, but on who was the great three masters. This was very exciting. After sharing the first place with Commandery Prince N, who still had a third candidate in mind. However, there couldn't possibly be two of the great three masters. The Cool Breeze gang had said that if there were two of them, they would pay double. Of course, it was impossible for there to be two of them. This was not a baseless guess. Someone had gone to the palace to ask around. The emperor would not allow there to be two of them. So the question was, who should they bet on? Of course it's Commandery Prince N. Do you still need to ask? A scholar in his 30s said, Commandery Prince N has been first in every imperial examination. If he can get first place in the palace examination, he will be the great three masters. Xiao Lulang came from a small county. The difficulty of the imperial examination is not comparable to the imperial examination in the capital. Moreover, his performance is not stable. I heard that he didn't do well in the college examination. He didn't even get the lesser three masters. Do you still dare to bet on him? Everyone felt that it made sense. Although he was considered to be the best in the county, what was he in the capital? Don't look at how he shared the first place with Commandery Prince N. It was just a fluke. The cabinet ministers must have sympathized with him because he came from a poor background and was able to write good essays. Otherwise, what would happen? Would he be able to compete with Commandery Prince N? Crazy. In the end, most of the people bet on Commandery Prince N. Only a few adventurers gritted their teeth and bet on Xiao Lulang. In order to attract more desperate gamblers, Qing Feng Gang did not hesitate to hang the Greater Three Masters list in the most prominent position in the main hall. Commandery Prince An's name was first on the right side. Xiao Lulang was second. But the two people's bets were as different as heaven and earth. Commandery Prince An's name was filled with gold ingots. Xiao Liulong's name only had a single silver ingot. A gold ingot represented 1,000 taels. A silver ingot represented 100 taels. Gu Jiao sold the emperor a second-hand brush for 8,000 taels. She used 3,000 taels to go to the Zhouzhuan Medical Center and the new pharmaceutical factory. She still had 5,000 taels left. She did not have the banknotes with her, but she had the bank's cards. She walked into the main hall. I want to bet. On the other side, Commandery Prince N was also betting in the side room of Qing Feng Gang. He did not reveal his identity. But he had a noble aura, so the shopkeeper did not dare to neglect him. The shopkeeper politely asked, "Young master, are you betting on the Greater Three Masters list? You can bet on Commandery Prince N. He will definitely win." Commandery Prince N was not interested in betting on himself. He tapped the table lightly with his finger. "I heard that you have the flower hairpin roll here." "Ah, yes, we do." The shopkeeper was surprised. He did not expect him to ask about the flower hairpin roll. Recently, because of Gu Jinyu, the flower hairpin roll was also affected. Some people suspected that Qing Feng Gang did not check the background of the people on the roll and caused them to lose money blindly. Actually, the results were not out yet. But everyone thought that Gu Jinyu had no chance. Those who bet on her regretted it so much that their intestines turned green. Now, Zhuang Yueshi was far ahead of the other competitors on the flower hairpin roll. The shopkeeper thought that he had also bet on Zhuang Yueshi. Commandery Prince N took out a thick stack of banknotes and placed it on the table. He said lightly, "All on eldest Miss Gu." The shopkeeper was dumbfounded. Commandery Prince N placed his bet on Gu Jiao. When he went downstairs, he saw Gu Jiao holding her cards and placing her bet on the big 3 yuan. 5,000 taels. Xiao Lulang. Commandery Prince N, who was shot in the heart. After placing her bet on her husband, Gu Jiao saw a string of shiny gold ingots under her husband's name. She left with satisfaction. Just as she was about to step into the carriage, she heard a gentle voice behind her. "What a coincidence, Miss Gu." Gu Jiao turned around. Seeing that it was Commandery Prince N, she asked calmly, "What's the matter?" Commandery Prince N thought of her bet just now and did not know whether to laugh or cry. "Miss Gu, do you have so little confidence in me?" Gu Jiao was confused. "What did you say?" "Place your bet." Commandery Prince N pointed at the big 3 yuan list in the hall. "Oh." Gu Jiao thought for a while and said, "If you have confidence in yourself, you can place your bet." "I have already placed all my money." Commandery Prince N. "That's not what I meant." "Forget it, I don't know what I mean either." "If there's nothing else, I'll leave first. Goodbye." Gu Jiao turned around and was about to get into the carriage. "Wait." Commandery Prince N stopped her. Gu Jiao turned around and stared at him. "Commandery Prince N, can't I look for you if there's nothing else?" Gu Jiao, "No." Commandery Prince N took a deep breath. "To treat my illness." Wu Yang, who was not far away, gasped. "My lord, didn't you say that you don't trust her? You slapped yourself in the face so quickly?" Gu Jiao said calmly, "Come to the medical center." Commandery Prince N smiled gently. "Okay." The two of them sat in their own carriages and returned to the medical center. When Gu Jiao brought Commandery Prince and into the medical center, the second boss and shopkeeper Wang, who were checking the accounts at the counter, were stunned. What was going on? Who was this wild man? Did Zhao Jiao cheat on their family? Other than Gu Chongqing, Gu Jiao had never appeared with another man other than Xiao Lulang. However, Gu Chongqing was her biological brother and this man was not. Gu Jiao walked in front. She might not have noticed it herself, but the way he looked at her was different from how he looked at others. It was a look that only men understood. As if he noticed the two of them sizing him up, Commandery Prince and said politely without losing his status, "I'm here to see a doctor." The second boss was stunned. "Ah. See a doctor. Are you looking for Xiao Gu?" "Xiao Gu." Commandery Prince N's lips curled up and he could not hide the smile in his eyes. "Yes, I'm looking for Xiao Gu." The second boss realized that he had said something wrong. He and Xiao Gu were close friends, so he could call her Xiao Gu. Why did you, a patient who came from nowhere, also call her Xiao Gu? The second boss was not convinced. Commandery Prince and put a silver ingot on the counter, the consultation fee. The second boss, "Please come in." Shopkeeper Wang, "I despise you." Commandery Prince and followed Gu Jiao into the consultation room. Gu Jiao noticed his night blindness the first time she saw him. However, she still asked him formally, "Have a seat. Where do you feel uncomfortable?" Commandery Princess and sat down. "My eyes." Gu Jiao looked at him and signaled him to continue. Commandery Prince and hesitated and finally told the truth, "I can't see at night." Gu Jiao asked again, "Other than not being able to see, do you feel any other discomfort?" "No." Commandery Prince and shook his head. "How long have you been in this condition?" Gu Jiao asked. Commandery Prince and thought for a while. "It slowly appeared the second year after I went to Chen State. The doctor saw me and said that I should have been poisoned. However, he never found out what kind of poison it was." "This has nothing to do with poisoning." Gu Jiao asked about his vision again. Commandery Prince and said, "It's too far. I can't see clearly." Gu Jiao pointed at the words on the wall. "What about this?" Commandery Prince and shook his head. He was also nearsighted. Gu Jiao made a judgment in her heart. Gu Jiao opened the small medicine box and took out a small flashlight that was smaller than her palm. She needed a slit lamp to check the fundus of his eyes. Unfortunately, the small medicine box couldn't take out such a large device for the time being. She could only use her eyes to check. Gu Jiao was a doctor. When she treated people, she didn't care about gender. She stood up and stood in front of Commandery Prince N. She bent down slightly. "It might be a little bright later. Don't move." "Okay." Commandery Prince N agreed. He was much more obedient than Lu Yixing. He did whatever the doctor asked him to do. If the doctor didn't ask him to move, he would definitely not move. Gu Jiao liked patients who cooperated. Gu Jiao opened his eyelids with one hand and used the small flashlight to check his eyes. Commandery Prince and didn't know what she was holding in her hand. He only felt that it was very bright and he couldn't see anything. The tip of his nose was filled with her fragrance. "Okay." Gu Jiao finished checking his eyes and took back the flashlight. She sat back on her chair and asked him about his eating habits before and after he went to Chen State. She found that he was very careful in Chen State and didn't dare to eat many things. This caused problems with his intake of nutrients. This kind of night blindness was easy to cure. It was also possible to recover his eyesight. Gu Jiao took out a bottle of fish liver oil from the small medicine box. She used a small porcelain bottle to fill it and handed it to him, once a day, 1 pill each time. "Is it really not poisoning?" Commandery Prince and took the small porcelain bottle and asked in disbelief. It was not strange that he was so careful. When he was 8 years old, he was sent to Chen State as a hostage. Many people wanted him to die. It was not the first time he was poisoned. "It's not poisoning," Gu Jiao confirmed. Commandery Prince and suddenly realized that it was not poisoning. He was wondering why they couldn't find the murderer. They even killed 2 hostages by mistake. Today, the Imperial College was dismissed early. Little Jing Kong was taken away by Lu Quan again. At night, the old chancellor was going to teach little Jing Kong a foreign language. Xiao Lulang went to the clinic. When he went in, he faintly felt that there was something wrong with the way everyone looked at him, especially the second boss and shopkeeper Wang. Their eyes were full of sympathy and awkwardness. They didn't dare to look at him. Xiao Lulang was used to all kinds of gazes after his leg injury. He didn't mind it and walked towards Gu Jiao's courtyard. The second boss whispered, "Do you think we should tell her that little Gu is in the clinic?" Shopkeeper Wang, "That's not the main point, right?" The main point was that they had been in there for a long time and hadn't come out yet. Was Miss Gu taking so long to see a doctor? Of course, it wasn't to the extent of saying that they were doing something shameful. Gu Jiao had her own courtyard. If they really wanted to do something, they should go to the small courtyard. However, it was rare to see her treating a patient for so long. Not to mention that the man didn't look sick at all. Moreover, he was too good-looking. The second boss thought, "I know little Gu the best. She must have been tempted by him again, just like how she treated Xiao Lulang in the past." When Xiao Lulang was unconscious, little Gu had been drooling over him in the side room for a long time. Humph, don't think he didn't know. To get to the small courtyard, he had to pass by the clinic. Just as Xiao Lulang reached the door of the consultation room, he saw the door open from the inside. It was Royal Prince, and Xiao Lulang stopped in his tracks. Coincidentally, at this moment, the medicine box fell from the table. Gu Jiao reached out to grab the medicine box, but her waist almost hit the table. Royal Prince strode forward and reached out to block her soft waist and the sharp corner of the table. He didn't actually touch her. Gu Jiao dodged. She wasn't that careless. However, from Xiao Liulong's point of view, it looked like his hand had supported her waist. Xiao Liulong's eyes darkened. Digression. Come, let's drink this cup of aged 82 vinegar. The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more interesting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_826/1134647005. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Gu mobile reading website, zhbqg.com. Chapter 218. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels can be read for free. Novels that can't be found online are all available here. Oh, you're here. When Gu Jiao stood up, she saw Xiao Lulang. She walked towards him with the medicine box and didn't spare any extra attention to Royal Prince and laughed at himself as he looked at the extra hand he had stretched out. He knew she would be able to avoid it. But still, school ended early today, so I came to take a look. Xiao Lulang paused and said, Lu Quan took Jing Kong back. This was a tacit understanding between people who lived together day and night. She didn't need to ask, but he already knew what she would ask. Gu Jiao smiled, I don't have anything to do here. I can go back after packing up. Xiao Lulang, how is Zhongshe? Gu Jiao, he's recovering well. Xiao Lulang, I saw little Zhongli just now. She's helping to get medicine. She's quite smart. A certain someone talked too much today. Gu Jiao didn't think too much about it and went back to the courtyard to pack up. Royal Prince looked at Xiao Lulang with a smile. His eyes were full of affirmation and support. You did well in the general examination. The court examination is as difficult as the general examination. Do well. I'll think of a way to send your exam paper to His Majesty. All tribute scholars were qualified to participate in the court examination. There were a total of 210 people, but less than 30 exam papers were presented to the emperor. It seemed that the power of the court examination was in the emperor's hands, but in reality, the first step was still controlled by the cabinet. For the examinees, it wasn't enough to just be capable. They had to have a strong background. Otherwise, the exam paper wouldn't reach the emperor's hands. The Grand Secretary of the cabinet was surnamed Yuan, but he was old. Most of the power in the cabinet was now in the hands of Grand Tutor Zhuang. The reason why Commandery Prince extended an olive branch to Xiao Lulang was because he had his eyes on Xiao Lulang from the beginning. Secondly, he was confident that even if he sent Xiao Liulong's exam paper to the emperor, he would still be the top scorer. As for whether there was a third reason, such as showing off his status and superiority in front of Gu Jiao, no one knew. Gu Jiao walked over with a small basket on her back. "What are you talking about?" "Nothing." Xiao Lulang glanced at Royal Prince expressionlessly, not showing any gratitude. He turned to Gu Jiao and said, "Let's go." "Okay." Gu Jiao nodded and left the clinic with him. In the evening, Feng Lin came over. He came alone without Lin Chengye. Ever since he and Lin Chengye started living together, Feng Lin rarely went out alone. Today, it was because Steward Zhou had arranged a blind date for Lin Chengye. Feng Lin came to talk to Xiao Lulang about his parents' case in Song County. There had been progress in the case. After Elder Feng's student received Xiao Liulong's letter, he immediately asked for the case of Feng Lin's parents and personally interrogated Feng Lin's relatives. When had the relatives in the countryside ever seen such a powerful official? In their hearts, the county magistrate was the sky. However, even the county magistrate could only stand on the side and pour tea for the other party. Without much effort, Feng Lin's relatives confessed. This matter had nothing to do with Feng Lin's parents. The two elders' innocence was cleared, and Feng Lin's innocence was cleared. "Lulang, did you hear me?" In the study, Feng Lin waved his hand in front of Xiao Liulong's face. "Yes, I heard you," Xiao Lulang said absent-mindedly. "Why do I feel like you're not in the right state?" Feng Lin still had to rush back to study and prepare for the court examination next month, so he didn't stay for too long. When he left the courtyard, he met the old chancellor coming from next door. He thought for a moment and told Liulong's son-in-law that something was wrong with Lulang. "I don't know what's wrong with him. I've been reunited with him for so long, but I've never seen him like this." The old chancellor went to Xiao Liulong's study. "You're here." Xiao Lulang greeted, but he was not in a good mood. The old chancellor sat down across from him at the desk, then looked at him deeply and asked, "Is there something bothering you?" "No." Xiao Lulang denied. The old chancellor asked, "Is it Marquis Xiao?" Xiao Lulang, "No." The old chancellor, "The court examination?" Xiao Lulang, "No." The old chancellor pondered for a moment. "Jiao Jiao?" Xiao Lulang. Xiao Lulang changed the topic. "Aren't you tutoring little Jing Kong? How's his learning going?" Hey, you're changing the topic. When did you and that little monk get along so well?" The old chancellor didn't give up so easily, or else he wouldn't have insisted on moving here. His Aheng was no longer the carefree Aheng of the past. He locked himself up and didn't want to let himself go out. The old chancellor said earnestly, "I've always wanted to ask you, what are your plans between you and Jiao Jiao? When you fainted on the side of the road and were picked up by Jiao Jiao, it was the Gu family who forced you to marry her. Although you're husband and wife, you're not husband and wife." Xiao Lulang didn't say anything. The old chancellor continued, "You didn't leave her in the past because you were worried that she had nowhere to go. Now that this worry is gone, what are you still thinking about?" Xiao Lulang said, "I'm not thinking about anything." The old chancellor said again, "Then let me ask you again, why did you come to the capital? You don't want to come back to this place for the rest of your life, right?" Xiao Lulang opened his mouth. The old chancellor didn't give him a chance to answer, don't tell me that Jiao Jiao forced you to come. Did she put a knife on your neck? Xiao Lulang lowered his eyes. No. The old chancellor sighed. Such a good girl, if you miss her, she won't be there anymore. If you don't cherish her, there will be others who will cherish her for you. I think Feng Lin is not bad, and Lin Qingye is also honest. Xiao Liulong's face turned black. Teacher. The old chancellor laughed. All right, I'm just kidding. They don't have that kind of interest in Jiao Jiao, but there's no guarantee that others will. This was the truth. Jiao Jiao was so outstanding, there would always be someone who would find her good and fancy her. My silly disciple is smart about everything, but this is the only area where she doesn't understand. After the old chancellor left, Xiao Lulang stayed in the study room for a long time until the sky was completely dark. Only then did he stand up and walk out. Gu Jiao was tidying up the courtyard. When he saw that there was no firewood in the woodshed, he picked up the axe to chop the firewood. Gu Jiao hurriedly walked over and took the axe from his hand. No need, let me do it. She was very insistent. Xiao Lulang went to the well to fetch water again, but she stopped him. Xiao Liulong's gaze landed on her hand that was carrying the water bucket. Her hand was slender, but it wasn't as delicate as a lady's. There were thin calluses on her palm, and there were knife marks on the web between her thumb and index finger. All the hardships she had suffered were on these hands. Xiao Lulang suddenly felt upset. What's wrong with you? Gu Jiao asked him. Jiao Jiao. Little Jing Kong ran over with a piece of homework in his hand. Granduncle gave me a question, I finished it. Gu Jiao took it and looked at it. Although she couldn't understand it, the words were better than before. Great, Gu Jiao praised. Little Jing Kong didn't leave with his hands behind his back. What's wrong? Gu Jiao asked. Little Jing Kong said cutely, I want to eat sugar-coated haws. Gu Jiao nodded. Okay, I'll go buy it for you. Xiao Lulang said, I'm going to buy something too. Gu Jiao smiled, then let's go together. Little Jing Kong jumped, I want to go too. Gu Jiao said softly, go to bed early, you still have to go to school tomorrow. I'll save the sugar-coated haws for you tomorrow morning. Little Jing Kong. Okay. It was so troublesome to be a kid. It felt so much better. Gu Jiao and Xiao Lulang went out. What do you want to buy? Gu Jiao asked on the way. Books, Xiao Lulang said. Gu Jiao thought for a while. It's not far, we'll pass by the study when we buy the sugar-coated haws. Xiao Lulang, okay. The night in March was not that cold, but the cold wind still felt a little chilly. Xiao Lulang glanced at Gu Jiao discreetly. She didn't seem cold. The two soon arrived at the entrance of the study. Gu Jiao said regretfully, It's closed, what books do you want to buy? I'll buy them for you tomorrow. Xiao Lulang said casually, It's not urgent, I'll buy them after school tomorrow. Okay. The two continued to walk forward. They didn't know why they were so lucky today. The study was closed, and the sugar-coated haws stall was also closed. Gu Jiao's face was full of bitterness and hatred. Xiao Lulang looked at the street opposite the alley. He also likes to eat fried fruits, they sell them over there. Gu Jiao had eaten fried fruits in her previous life, but it was fried flour and somewhat like fried dough sticks. The fried fruits in the capital were mixed with glutinous rice and stuffing. Not only little Jing Kong liked it, Gu Yan and Gu Xiaoshun also liked it. But Gu Yan couldn't eat it. Gu Jiao decided to buy some fried fruits. Gu Jiao was the only one who felt that they were unlucky tonight, but Xiao Liulong's face darkened when he saw the fried fruit stall. The capital was so big, why was he everywhere? The fried fruit stall had 2 tables, and Zhuang Yueshi and Prince An were sitting at one of the tables. Prince An also saw Xiao Lulang and Gu Jiao. He smiled warmly at them. What a coincidence, you're also here to eat the food? His food has been cooked for many years, and it tastes good. You're from other places, so you haven't eaten it, right? Xiao Lulang thought, I've been eating it since I was young. Xiao Liulong's mood suddenly became irritable. The women's school was next to the medical center. Zhuang Yueshi had seen Gu Jiao before, so she knew that Gu Jiao was probably the female doctor of the Miracle Hands Hall. But they didn't pretend. She asked Prince N, "Brother, do you know her?" Prince N introduced, "Miss Gu is my classmate." Strictly speaking, the introduction of the couple should be my classmate and his wife. But Commandery Prince N automatically ignored something. Hearing that it was her brother's classmate, Zhuang Yueshi's expression cleared up. Soon she asked again, "Which Miss Gu?" Prince N's gaze fell on Gu Jiao, Ding and Marquis Fu's daughter. Ding and Marquis Fu only had 2 daughters, one was Gu Jinyu, and the other was the real daughter who grew up in the countryside. Was it this girl in front of them? She really looked. Zhuang Yueshi saw the red birthmark on Gu Jiao's left cheek and swallowed her question. She wasn't as arrogant as Zhuang Mengdai. Since her brother admitted that they were classmates, then she would treat them with respect. "Come and sit, we still have to wait for a long time," Prince N said to the two. There was another table, but it was full. There was only an empty seat beside them. The two walked over and sat down. Gu Jiao sat next to Zhuang Yueshi, while Xiao Lulang sat next to Prince N. But this seat made Prince N and Gu Jiao face each other, while Zhuang Yueshi and Xiao Lulang face each other. Zhuang Yueshi only had her brother in her eyes, so she didn't stare at Xiao Lulang. But Prince N kept staring at Gu Jiao. Xiao Lulang frowned. What was wrong with him? Why did he come to buy fried fruits? There were many people buying fried fruits, so they waited for 15 minutes before it was their turn. During this time, Prince N and Zhuang Yueshi's fried fruits were ready, but Prince N gave it to someone else. Xiao Liulong's face darkened. Prince N exchanged a few words with the two, mostly asking questions like, "Why did you come out to eat so late? How did you come here? Is it far? Do you need me to send you back?" Zhuang Yueshi didn't notice her brother's special treatment of Gu Jiao and thought her brother was caring for his classmate. But Xiao Lulang knew that he wasn't that close to Prince N. After a while, Prince N talked about an astronomy book he read in Chen country. Gu Jiao was interested. When she was interested, her eyes would brighten and shine like stars. Xiao Lulang felt suffocated. Their fried fruits were ready, so Prince N paid for them. "No need." Xiao Lulang put the copper coins on the table coldly. "We'll buy it ourselves." Prince N spread his hands and smiled. Xiao Lulang and Gu Jiao left. Prince N and Zhuang Yueshi also planned to get on the carriage and return home. At this moment, a dragon and lion dance troupe suddenly appeared on the street. It was a courtesan from a brothel. The entire Chong'an Avenue was in an uproar. The crowd swarmed over and was about to drown them. Gu Jiao grabbed Xiao Liulong's wrist and dragged him through the crowd. Gu Jiao didn't stop until they entered Jadewater Alley. Then, she heard a low laugh. Gu Jiao's body stiffened and she turned around. She saw that the person she was dragging wasn't Xiao Lulang, but Prince N. Gu Jiao. On the other side, Xiao Liulong's handsome face turned cold. That girl actually ran away with another man right in front of him. Digression. Ha 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 ha. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated even faster. Millions of novels will be read for free. Novels that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_826/113461120. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Gu mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.